The early intervention grant from the State Department of Education, and Carrie Gardner was very instrumental in that, along with the literacy team and other leadership in the district, in terms of what do we want for our youngest, K1 and 2, in curriculum, in our practice, in our instruction, in our planning. What does that look like? So what happened, and as a result of that, we have a district reading framework, as you know. Most of you should have, or either last spring or this fall, attended the reading framework training. Basically, the corporation had never had that expectation. What do we do for reading for our kindergarten, first and second grade, and beyond, in terms of solidifying and being consistent? So this is also part of that, in terms of what does it look like? What is it, I understand the framework, I understand that we're doing less whole group, or we're doing mini lessons, and then we're applying, and we're strategizing, and we're instructing also and mostly in small group, and then we're coming back and sharing, that model. I get that, but how does it really work? So, and in first and second grade, last week we talked a lot with first and second grade teachers about literacy workstations, and so you'll hear this morning from our presenters about centers and workstations, because when they're 5, some things just work better and stick, right? Like the Velcro. So I do want to make do some introductions. Carol Gardner, grant specialist and many other hats in the corporation, and we do want to thank her for this opportunity. Katie, Jay, and Emily are our district coaches. I think you all probably know Emily and Katie, and they were very much a part of the planning with our presenters today. Cece, I'm going to let you say your last name.
Maren Punterelli.
Maren Punterelli. I have to say it over and over again. Cece has a wealth of experience and expertise in early childhood, and I will let her tell you more about that. But basically, she is a consultant now, working with early childhood and schools and districts to help in those grades. And then Becky and Kara Dixon are a duo from Clear Creek. They both teach kindergarten at Clear Creek, and we are thrilled that they can share. I mean, how much do we have of this? And we wanted to be sure this was something that could be local in terms of follow-up, going into the classroom and collaborating together and seeing together, and then in December following up on how are things working in your own classroom. So oftentimes if we bring somebody from the outside, it's hard to do it in depth and to that level. So we really appreciate the time that Becky and Karen and Cece have committed for our young ones. Thanks.
Okay. Yes. I keep forgetting this. We'll go around and say who everybody is, and some of us know each other, and we have a lot of new people.
And where you are.
What?
I was going to say, I don't know.
No. Your role and what school. And it is nice I like to know how many new teachers we have.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'm Dana Frederick, and I've been at Unionville for 5 years, I think, and
I'm Laura Lucas, and I've been at Unionville for 11 years. Claire Mickey, I'm the lit coach at Arlington this year, but previously I've done kindergarten and first for 7 years.
I'm Chloe. I'm at Templeton, and I've taught for 4 years in kindergarten.
I'm Jenny Dunning, and I've been at Summit with kindergarten for either 6 or 7.
You can just say
You can say
long
long
time.
time.
Amy Thackeray, I'm at Summit. I think most of my teaching experience of over 20 years has been K1, but now more K. So I've been at Summit, I think 7-ish. I think the same as Jenny.
I think we started the same time, it's not the same grade.
Samantha Moore, and I also teach kindergarten at Summit. This is my 3rd year.
Andre Rush, I teach kindergarten at Summit, and this is my 5th year.
I'm Lena Kopp. I am still learning to become a teacher. I'm a 6th student teacher right now.
Right there.
I'm finishing my master's program.
I never saw last year.
I've heard about it. There are good things about it.
I'm Sarah Murray, and I teach kindergarten at Childs, and I've been in K-1 for 15 years.
I'm Melissa Jeffers. I teach kindergarten at Childs, and I've
So we have some experience here today. So I'll expect some great feedback from you and some good ideas. So I'm Becky Dixon, and I've been a kindergarten teacher at Clear Creek for 21 years. I taught first grade for 1 year, a little out of my comfort zone. I came back to kindergarten, and before that I was a teacher at Campus Children's Center at IU for about 9 years. So deeply rooted in early childhood. I did teach at IU for 4 years, the early childhood cohort. That was a little much, full-time teaching. I might get back to that later, but it was a great experience. So today, as you noticed when you came in, you saw slides about play, and it might have been a little unexpected. It might have surprised you a little bit. I'm really excited to be doing this because I've been teaching for a very long time, and the pendulum has swung back and forth and back and forth, and lately it's been a lot different, and I feel like I sort of started to lose my way a little bit with all of the ELs and all of the CFAs and the 90-minute reading block and all that. We're going to talk about all of that today. But I was really excited when they came and asked me. I ran into a couple of teachers at the farm, and they said, "Oh, I see you're presenting, and what's that going to be about?" And I said, "Oh, it's going to be about literacy and play." And their faces lit up. These are teachers that have been teaching for a long time. They said, "Really? How did you get them to do that?" And I said, "No, they came to me and asked me to do that." So when I went to the planning meeting, I was like, "You really want us to talk about developmentally appropriate practice again, and talk about the role of play and children having authentic experiences and interacting with materials and each other for a bulk of the day, and that's going to be okay, and that fits into the literacy framework." And they said, "Yeah, that's what we want." So, yay! And the teachers were getting excited. And so we hope that you'll have a fun day. We have to sort of suspend some things, and we have to open our minds a little bit, especially for teachers who came in the last 5 or 6 years when things had become much more structured. Those of us who've been at it for a long time have just sort of kept saying, every time they hand us something new, we say, "Okay, we can do that, We're not going to change what we're doing, but we can work that in. We can work that in." And those of us who've been in for a long time kind of know how that goes. Something comes over and you go, "Okay, we can handle that." But we're not going to change what we're doing. So I'd like you to get into the mindset of the day. This is from NAUIC, National Association for Education of Young Children. And it's not an either-or thing. It's an and thing. And I was so happy to find this in the NAUIC literature because I like that it's and. It's not either we do this or we do this. We can do both. So we know that children construct their own understandings of concepts, and they benefit from instruction, from peers and adults. That's scaffolding from adults and their peers. Children benefit from opportunities to see connections across the curriculum and from opportunities to have some in-depth study in content areas. So we're going to talk a little bit about project work. Children benefit from predictable structures and routines, we know that, and from flexibility and being open to spontaneous emerging ideas and having time for those ideas to be put to use. And we're going to talk about that a little bit. Children benefit from self-initiated play. We're going to play a little bit today, so I hope you're ready to play. And from teacher-planned, structured projects and experiences. So it's not either or, it's and. They can work very well together. Work versus play. There's a term from 7 Habits. We use the 7 Habits of Happy Kids in our school. And one of the habits is put first things first. So one thing they say with put first things first is first we work and then we play. We change that up a little bit because for us, their work is their play. Their play is their work. And so we use those terms interchangeably. We don't say finish your work, then you can go play. We try not to say that. Sometimes it's a habit. Because they're working, play is their work. So we're going to look at work and play synonyms. Something to remember, we are teaching 5-year-olds. Some of our kids were 4. Did anyone have 4-year-olds coming in? 4-year-olds, because now we start so early. So now we have 4-year-olds. Think of how many months that they've been alive in this world. Not that much. Yesterday we figured out days.
5-year-olds, I think it's 1,821 days old when they're 5.
Right.
So you're like 2,000 days on this earth, and they've learned all this
Oh,
stuff. And here we are saying, now you have to sit still.
do this.
Yeah.
So they're in school now, 7+ hours a day, before school, after school, sunrise to sunset in the wintertime. If they don't do these things with us, when is it going to happen for them? You know, I get goosebumps thinking about it. When do they do communication skills? When do they have practice fine motor skills? When do they get to explore outside? When do they get to play outside? If not at school, where is it going to happen? For some children, that's it for them. They go home, their families are tired, they watch TV, maybe if they're lucky, someone will read them the story. Some schools more than others. And they go to bed and they get up and they do it all over again 5 days a week. It's a full-time job for them. When are they going to get to explore real things? When are they going to do experiments and solve problems and have social skill experiences? If they don't do it at school, when is it going to happen? And that can feel like a burden, but it can also be liberating to you to think, oh, it's okay for them to be outside longer. It's okay for them to be playing. They need it. We're it for some of these children. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at the world of literacy through the lens of a young child. And we're going to explore the infusion of literacy learning across all areas, across the day, across the curriculum, and see how literacy is part of everything that you do. It doesn't have to just be that 90-minute reading block, that uninterrupted 90-minute reading block. It can look so different in kindergarten. And the powers that be are saying, it's okay. It's okay for it to look different in kindergarten. Yes?
Sorry, we were just discussing ourselves. Our administrators, do they get to
Yes.
see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Everyone's going to see it on Meet, parts of it, not the whole thing, on Meet. And we'll talk later about that.
Okay.
That's the first question we get every single day.
All right.
Yeah. Examine, we're going to look at some structures and planning the environment and what that 90-minute block looks like in an early childhood classroom. Preschool, kindergarten, it's going to look different than it does in 1st and 2nd grade. In recent years, it feels like kindergarten looks more like 1st grade used to look, right? For those of us who've been around, who, when I first came to teach kindergarten, the expectation was that they would learn their letters and sounds by the end of the year. Right? And rhyming, and a few other things, yeah. And now look at what they're expected to know. Now, that doesn't say they can't learn it. It's amazing what 5-year-olds can learn and do. But it looks a little different in kindergarten because we know kindergartners are a little bit different than 5. And we're going to focus on teaching with intention and purpose. So those emerging readers are learning their skills in developmentally appropriate ways. So that's what we're going to do. And that's our mindset of the day. And what we would like you to do is go on this ride with us and keep an open mind. And we're going to have plenty of time for questions. And most of your questions will be answered by the time we're finished about the structure, about, you know, how do we bring people on board, all that kind of thing. Okay? All right, I'm going to turn this over to Cece.
And I'm going to pass this around so everyone can take it in. Oh, okay. All right. So I know some of your faces, so know some of your children. So my name is Cece Marin Panarelli. I am, my degrees, I have, my background has been in elementary education, and so to start, was in elementary education and taught 2nd grade and 3rd grade for about 9 years before my children were born. And when my children were born, I stayed home for a little bit. And then when it was time for me to get back into the classroom, and they went into the classroom, I really took a look at where elementary education was and where early childhood education was, and felt a little bit more comfortable with where early childhood education was at that point. and was involved then at St. Mark's Nursery School, and it didn't have a kindergarten then, just nursery school, and got involved teaching there. Taught there for a while, and then for the past 12 years I've been the director at St. Mark's Nursery School and kindergarten, which we added when MCCSC went to full day. We didn't feel a real need for it until then, and then it was like, you know, for some children, that's still a really wonderful choice to have a half-day program. So our half-day program is wonderful, but that's another story. Anyway, what I was going to tell you, oh, and the other thing that I've been doing and have been doing for the last 2 years is teaching at IU, the junior level courses. There's a class that is called Play as Development. So for the last 2 years, I've been teaching the juniors about how to teach children through play. And it's been wonderful, and they've loved it. And when we do that, we play. So, which is what we're going to do here. Because how can I tell you that we learn best through play if I don't let you learn through play? So we're going to give that a try in a little bit. But first we're going to take a look at what we've got. We gave you guys an apple. And one of the things that we know is that children learn best. You know, where are they at this stage? Developmentally, our children are still, no, you can go ahead and read it. I want you to. He's like, what? That's part of the deal, so good. Keep on eating. So, you know, where are our children developmentally? What we know about them developmentally is they are still at the stage where they need to explore. They're at the exploratory stage. They need to have things in their hands and in their mouths and in their, you know, like they have to have it in and experience it before they can really make meaning of the world. And so what we're doing as we get ready and as we do teach them literacy is we have to tie in those real things so they understand. So in your hand or in your mouth or in front of you, you have a real thing. Will you tell me what you know about it from this chance to have it with you? What do you know about that thing?
It's sweet.
It's sweet because he knows because he ate. Sweet.
Say it loud, we're writing it down.
Yeah. What else?
It has a stem and a flower.
It has a stem and a flower. Good.
And these look like they might have not come from the store, they might have come from someone's own tree.
It looks like from an own tree. It's really organic from Kroger. But, but you know it comes from a tree.
Well,
You think
that not.
You can guess it.
Okay. From a tree or a grocery store. Some people know it comes from a grocery store. Or both. And that's where their background experience is really important. You know, for someone who lives in New York City, it comes from a grocery store. So, who else? Yeah.
It's red and yellow.
It's red and yellow. What else?
It's smooth.
It's smooth, juicy, round.
Sounded crunchy.
It sounds crunchy.
It has seeds.
And what color? Oh, it has seeds, and on the inside, we can see it's a different color. What color is it? Yellowish. Someone said creamy white before, but yellow is
Ooh,
a
I
really
like
good one too. So a different color on the inside. Okay. You know what some children are going to do with it, right? You know, and to find out about it, they're going to try and bounce it. They're going to roll it hard. It can be bruised.
How does
They
it-
can be bruised.
How does it move?
You can roll it.
You can roll it. Good, so you get the idea, what we know by touching and feeling. So now, often in our classrooms, to give children an idea of what it is we might have something like this. Can you tell it's not? So, it's play. So what of those things do we need to cross out? Because we no longer can find out these realities. What are the things up there that we need to cross off because this doesn't have those qualities?
Juicy.
Seeds, sweet,
Crunchy.
what else?
The yellowish, creamy white for the
Yeah.
inside.
The inside, how about?
Can't be bruised.
It can't be bruised. Good. Oh, this one does not have a stem. It still has a little bit of a flower though. Okay. Good, good. So now with our children, we also expose them to this.
Which is what we typically do.
Which we
Right?
typically
Picture
do.
of an apple, eggs, there it is.
So what do we need to now cross off that list? Because they will not have quite the same understanding of this.
Rolls.
And
Round.
round. From a tree? Well, it is on paper.
At least
Grocery
I have a
store?
schema for that.
Right. No flour. Good. And then, okay. So if we start with this, what do we still have to cross off?
Red and yellow.
Red and yellow. Okay. This word won't have any meaning if we go to teach them literacy without having these experiences. Then this word won't have much meaning to them. And it won't be very motivating either. To learn the word when you don't have an idea of what the item is going to be really difficult. So what do we do and what do you do? In play and in different areas in the classroom, you have a chance to expose them to all kinds of things, and that's what we're going to see from what they've developed and what we've brought in, is they can get this concept through playing, through touching, through the things that you bring in a much greater way than if they just get this. And then once you do get that, and they do get that, it's really fun to think of ways that you can bring it into all kinds of areas of the classroom. And this is a great book that is on apples. But what it also has in it is artwork about apples. So art tied into a lot of different areas. So we're talking about how they get those experiences through all the
I just wanted to add that
Yeah.
something about those experiences that it's especially important for kids who don't have, we're using an apple. Most kids have an understanding of what an apple is. But if you were talking about something else, such as, I used the example yesterday, like a zebra, and you're saying Z is for zebra, Z is for zebra. Some of our kids have never been to a zoo. I'm sure you have kids who have never been to a zoo. They haven't had the benefits of being able to see real things. They may not even have had a book with a picture of a zebra in it, or seeing anything to do with a zebra. So even though the apple, you think, oh, well, an apple, everybody has an understanding of that, and they can connect to their real experience. There are many things for our kiddos that they can't connect to. So this last point that says every learner is entitled to enriching experiences, every learner. Sometimes we tend to take the kiddos who've had the most experiences and call those the enrichment kids, right? And they get even more enrichment. Oh, they're ready for projects. They're ready for this. They can handle this. Where in reality, it's the kiddos that don't have experiences that most need these kinds of real, authentic experiences. So that you can build their schema for things. So when they start to read, and they're reading a book about animals and about a zebra, they'll be pulled in because they know what that is, instead of just saying, oh, I don't know what that is. I can't relate to that. We want them to comprehend when they read, right? If they don't have knowledge and vocabulary and experiences to draw from, it's not going to be meaning to them. And that's what we need. So I'm just going to let you read through this. This is from a book that we really like a lot called The Intentional Teacher. This is what it looks like. It's published by NEUIC. It's a very, very good book. And I was looking for some things on language, and some of these things we've talked about. One thing that I would just like to highlight is, by definition, the most productive child-initiated activities are still those that involve the child in some kind of interaction with other children or adults at some point of the day. And that's, the language piece is important when it's communicated with others, when it's a communication and an interaction. And so that's why play is so important for little ones, because that's where they practice their language skills the most, when they're interacting with adults and other children. Okay.
Right. I was trying to find my quote about that. Anyway, so what we're going to do is play. So you have to think like a child and act a little like a child. So what we also know from Defending the Early Years, which is by Joan Allman and by Nancy Carlson Page, children learn best when they're engaged in activities geared to their developmental levels. So we were talking about developmentally appropriate. Their prior experiences, so those things that we bring in, and their current needs. And so, of course, our job is to figure out what their current needs are. And as they construct their ideas through hands-on play, hands-on activities and play that make sense to them, they build knowledge that becomes a groundwork for them. They build a foundation of meaning that provides the basis for understanding concepts in language, literacy, math, science, and the arts. In active learning, their capacities for language development, social and emotional awareness, problem solving, etc., transform them into effective learners. So, key is that it's the developmentally appropriate, that it's based on their prior knowledge, and that it meets their needs. So what we're going to do to start is play as a kindergartner. So what I want you to do is think of a child in your room, and I don't want you to think of the first child that you thought of, or the second one. Think of about the third or fourth child that comes to your mind. Maybe that child who is really just part of that group. Because that's what you're going to do, is be part of a group this time. And we have several areas that are set up around the classroom. And what we want you to do is to see, A, what draws you in? How long do you want to play at that thing, or explore that thing, or look at it? And then notice how you want to move on or stay with something, and know that our children are all like that. So totally different in how they are and how they attach to things or question things. So find where you're drawn. There is a dramatic play area out in the hallway. And what we're going to do is let you just play, explore, and as you do it, think a little bit about what you're doing, and we'll come back and talk about what you noticed.
And we're gonna play 3 times.
Oh, that's right, thanks.
So this first time is going to be a little shorter. We just wanted to send you in and see what entices you, and come back and chat a bit. Try to just pretend, put your mind as a 5-year-old when you're doing the play. And we'll play the second time with a little different purpose, and then the third time with another purpose. And get in there and play.
Yeah.
Yesterday, people were just so timid to get in there and play.
Yeah.
We really want you to get down.
And think of it as a kindergartner, not as a kindergarten teacher. As a teacher, you go, oh, my row, you said my row.
Yeah.
So we're going to give you about 5 or 7 minutes.
Yes, I will. She got Oh, yeah, it's the best training down. All right, play. I'm going to play.
You need a white shirt.
Sit down here. Play.
Mine's
Yeah, that's true. They would be like, sure.
She made it over.
How could you do to make it stronger?
Well, you know Adrian.
I know.
Oh! You didn't like it when it fell over, did you? It was an accident.
I am obsessed with this bag. Sat here all day yesterday, and I just kept putting my hand all right on it, like.
Problem solving.
Well, I know what it is, but I don't have to actually play with them. I have told people that they should be devastated.
Right, now you can't.
But I didn't get to just play with it for the day. And I didn't keep my kids off this. Yesterday, I just kept playing with it all day long. I need to read a bag to do that.
Guys are welcome to change areas. I'll hold it on the right. I'll write it. Oh, your arms can get so tired. I wonder if that basket would be tall enough to hold that up.
There's no magic.
Can we back up a little here?
I think by 10:30 gives us safe.
I knew it was.
Hey, pretty
You know what? I'm scared of the dark. I forgot to give you a word. I typically would do that, honestly. Right, come on back. You still have it.
She turned the lights off, she scared me.
I didn't know it was going to be that dark. Oh. No natural lighting here, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, all right, right.
I apologize.
How's Johnny doing?
authentic.
How's
I
Johnny doing?
really wish you a 2-minute.
Is he still really, does he play volleyball?
I'm sorry?
How's Johnny doing?
Oh, do you know my Johnny?
I coached him, no, I still coach him,
Oh,
not
okay, yeah, he's at Frank playing it.
Oh, is he? I didn't know if he was still playing him.
Yeah, he's still playing.
Good.
So what did you notice? What naturally enticed you? What did you find yourself drawn to?
Trains.
Trains.
Color and texture.
Color and texture.
We
That's
had
a
that
good
yesterday
one.
too.
And you know, I was gonna say about trains that you do know, like, little boys really need to move in order to learn. Like, that's part of what is going on with their brains, so that movement, very realistic for
And a
everyone.
lot of little girls too.
Yeah, and a lot of little girls, but boys especially, anyone, actually, we all need to move when we're learning, we know that. So, color and texture is a big one that seems to draw people into, what else?
kitchen.
Kitchen, yeah. Gotta act like that. You wanna do a little dramatic, pretend. Good. And then even paying attention to your attention span, you know, how long you want to be at a different thing. What's really nice to think about with this is that each of our children is at a different developmental level, stage and space. So some of them do have to keep on doing that jumping from thing to thing. And we know that we need to meet those needs. And others are really good at just being focused at one thing. And so we need to meet those needs too, and making sure that there's plenty that we bring in to entice them to keep the learning going. So if you do see that one child who has to go to the same place over and over again, that's great, because in some way it's meeting their needs, but then your job as the teacher is to go, okay, so how can I introduce another concept into what this child is doing?
We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We had a question about, what do you do if they keep wanting to go to the same place every day? And Cece said sometimes there's a need,
Yeah,
so it's your job to determine what the need is.
yeah.
Sometimes it's that that's their comfort zone, and that's what they know, and then sometimes that's when you know they need a nudge to go and try other things and do something. And Kira said sometimes on Friday we have like do something different day on Friday, and so at least there's one day a week that encourages them to go, oh, you haven't been a scientist this week, you haven't been a builder this week, you need to expand your play repertoire and do something like that.
And then what literacy skills did you find yourself, not even knowing it, but engaged in some kind of literacy skill? What kind of things were you doing? Communicating. A lot of talk, and talk is so important. Especially now that our children, even in their car, they may not have a conversation with an adult or with another. So this is where they really get a chance to talk with one another. So the classroom can get noisy if it's good. You know, like it's okay if they're communicating.
Yeah.
That's what they're supposed to be doing. And what else?
And you know, there's the opportunities you may not have been engaged in, but that you saw available.
Yeah.
At the building station, there were a lot of books, and then there's also like a ring with laminated floor plans and maps and different ways maybe to have kids thinking about, you know, what they could use the blocks for, and you know, if they can recognize any letters or whatever's on there.
Labels.
Yeah.
And I love that it's laminated so that they can get a dry erase marker on it.
Yeah, and one thing to remember too, we're always thinking about literacy as print, but also drawing is such an important step, right, for our little ones to get their hands ready for writing and build those muscles, and get things in their muscle memory and their motor memory that's so important for a little one. So for us, drawing is a critical component of literacy development.
And there was a paper that said construction with the names. I don't know.
We'll get to that, yeah.
Well, and it's also, this is representational.
Yeah.
Like before they learn, before they can make sense of the letters, they have to make sense of the pictures. So that's all.
Reading the
also
pictures, so that's what plans
literacy.
are for.
This is reading.
Yeah, that is reading.
Anything else?
Anything else?
At the kitchen, Katie and I were like talking of like, what is this? Or kind of just talking about identifying food and sorting
Naming
it, kind
things,
of.
vocabulary.
I love the cookbook idea. I don't have a cookbook at my kitchen, but I really like that idea. Just that they could flip through, and I know there's a lot of cookbooks for kids too, with lots
Yes.
of pictures of recipes that they could look through and try to create that with food.
All right. So, you guys got the idea that there are a lot of ways that, again, are they just playing? They're playing and they're learning, and they're being exposed to literacy through the whole thing. So the second session, we have a little paper for you to do. Because now what you're going to do is you're going to go into this area, and we are going to turn the page for me. I wanted to just read you, because now we're going to look a little bit more about the intentionality and the teacher's role in all of this. And the teacher in our school system that is involved with this, because now we're going to do the same thing. You're going to play as if you are a kindergartner. But this time, as you're doing it, we want you to also kind of have the eyes of an adult and look for the ways that you can find the ELs that are on that, or the ways that you can engage in those ELs that are on that paper. So
Still as a
can you-
5-year-old.
You're a 5-year-old. Do you see the ways that you can get engaged in those things? And at the same time, one of the things, it says the teacher's role is crucial in helping children build a solid foundation in early literacy. The teacher sets up an environment, so that's your role, is setting up the environment, which, by the way, we have the most control over. We have more control over the environment than other things, so we can control that to make it most effective. That will engage children in a wide range of activities and establishes a warm and accepting relationship with each child. So we want the activity centers to be full of open-ended materials. So what I'd like you to do is on the back side of that paper that you have, you're going to write these things that we'd like you to look at, and this is more from the angle of the play. So there should also, as you're looking, see if you can find open-ended materials. And those are things that help children to have divergent thinking, so that now they're thinking, wow, what if? How can I? Full of wonder.
Instructional. that self-initiated, creative.
And if you think about it, that's what our children have to have more than anything else, you know, like, is so that we can plan for their future. They have to be able to think of a lot of different ways to problem solve. So you're gonna look for problem solving opportunities. You're gonna also look for things that spark investigation and imagination. And I'm having you write it because it's also that helps you to internalize it because you're doing, it's not just reading it, but doing it with your hands. So.
I'm gonna
this
add
activity-
one
yeah,
thing to that, Cece.
Yeah,
Now that we've talked a little bit about the literacy materials, you may have noticed that I came over and pulled a book over. Did you notice? Said, oh, Laura, did you see that we have a book? She was building something and it kept falling down. And so I thought maybe I could help her with her, make her building a little more sturdy and give her an idea, spark that imagination, give her an idea to get her going and get her thinking. And I pulled a book over and opened it up and it enticed her and drew her in. It's like, oh. Look at this. And it may have changed her building a little bit, and I introduced that literacy element to it. We could use a book to help us with that. There's paper there, the construction papers, I'll tell you what that's for, because just as our children come into our classrooms and we just set up our environment like this, I set it up with a lot of intention, we did, but you didn't know what all the materials were for. So the first time you were playing just as a 5-year-old would go in, grabbing things that enticed you, that looked interesting to you. And we were talking about this yesterday, that even 5-year-olds might pull in more things than adults would when they see things sitting there.
Well,
Yeah.
what if, like, you have it laid out, and like you said, your imagination and let them investigate. What if they think, well, I can use this for something else?
That's right.
Not necessarily what you naturally intended it for,
Absolutely.
but whatever they think they can use it for.
That's
you know,
right.
Is that?
Yeah, that's the
Right.
open-ended part of it, because if we do everything that's so scripted for them, it's a little bit of a balancing act,
Takes
right?
away their creativity.
We want them to be engaged in certain kinds of things, because we're going to talk about productive play and what productive play looks like. And so we do want them having that productive play. We do want them using the materials constructive. We don't want them just building up and knocking down towers. Now, sometimes they do that and say, that's what we did in preschool. We knocked them, we built them up and knocked them down, and you've been doing that for a long time. Now, let me show you what we did in kindergarten. We built, and at the beginning of the year, we have to get in there and play with them. Often it has to be modeled at the beginning of the year. Not always, it depends on your class. You can step back and see what they do, which is always a good idea to see what they do first. And then go, oh, we need to step in and spend the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks of school during our center time, not trying to get something done while they're playing, but playing with them and teaching them. I think that's the key to having that play be productive and setting the tone for that from the beginning, the precedent from the beginning of the year. But at the same time, we do want to have these open-ended materials so that creativity and that divergent thinking takes place, because that's what we want them to do, and that problem solving. So you notice I just said, oh, take a look at this book. Have you seen this book? Oh, here's some paper. What could you do with that? And we model that use of the paper so that they know what it's for. That paper that says construct, say, oh, this is here because you could draw a picture of your building. And then after you do that, I'll come in and we can write about it. You can tell me what you did. And it serves another purpose. You want to talk about the sharing, what they do?
Can I say one thing?
Yeah.
Notice she
Yeah.
she didn't solve the problem of the tower. She
Right.
put forth the way that the child could learn about.
Well, and what did
a
you
great
started
thing.
then flipping through the pages?
Yeah.
So I
So
just
you
did
could
this,
find the
and then
problem.
she's like, oh, okay. Here's another thing that I could use. Here's a resource that I could use to further my thinking, to make it deeper. And that's a literacy piece too. It's all tied together.
So all of these papers are in the different areas, and at the end of choice time, we choose a few friends to come back and share their work. So if they were purposeful, if they spent time completing, some things that they spent a lot of time on and that they're very proud of. It builds confidence. It also models for all the other kids of what the expectation is during choice time. That, oh, we build things, we create things, we're purposeful with our time. We don't just, run around, build things, knock things down. we're doing something.
It's important work.
Yeah. We are learning as we're building. So we have a construction one, so you can build your building or build your creation of anything. In the house area, there is a menu, so
Some of them
breakfast,
are
lunch,
almost
and
right.
dinner. Science area is your acting as a scientist and drawing your creation or your experiment or what you discovered. There are magnets over there too. A lot of my kids drew their creation or what they discovered about magnets. They drew like pictures of
Things that
the
would
magnets
attract.
moving and things like that.
And it's great engineering, just transferring that
And
knowledge.
then being able to speak about it
representing.
and explain your thinking and why it happened that way, or digging deeper and you asking the questions like, well, why do you think it worked that way? And then having that whole conversation with your class, what happened? Why did that do that? And then having them provide the answers. So it's really
Makes the place so valuable.
exploring on their own thoughts and ideas with the whole group. There's also in house area just a sheet that says action, problem, and big feeling. So you're drawing your play.
And we would set this, we use this as a pre-writing paper
Narrative
for
writing.
narrative writing. So before maybe they write a book, we'll do some thinking about, does your story have some action or a big feeling? And of course, we have a lot of talk about the elements of the story, and this ties into that retelling. that we have.
And then just a play script, so they're drawing what they acted out, what was their plan during their play, who was the mom, putting labels on who was the dad or who was the doctor. And then a shopping list, so if you wanted to play grocery store, you could create a shopping list. And this is something that we do during our writing workshop. We've already taught these things, and we talk about lists, and if they weren't playing with it, we go in and say, oh, you know what, we've talked about lists, we've made lists. Oh, I see that you're playing grocery store.
Would you like a
Would you like a list?
We have made one.
So they already know, they've already experienced this, and they already know what the purpose is.
These are the books a couple of books that we read that we would then put in the house area. And we just kind of show you, so it makes that connection. Oh, we read these books about shopping. And there's this, oh, I remember, we were making lists in writing workshop. And then it all becomes an application piece in their play, in the house area. And they know what to do with it. By the time it gets to them, they know what to do with it. Because we
And then when someone comes in and goes, but they're just playing, you're going, oh, no, they're writing this right here, right there, they're doing, and so there it is, you can show it. So as they come
Okay,
So,
sorry to put that.
yeah,
I
we
wanted
got
to
into
put
the
that
middle
piece
of-
in.
Can
But
I
that's
ask
all
a
right,
quick
yeah,
question?
yeah.
So the papers, are they a have-to for kids?
No.
Like, so it's just kind of using your
there.
teacher judgment when you see someone who may be ready, like you've built something
It's
like
in
blocks,
there,
you-
or it's just in
just
there.
our
And
recipe.
sometimes we use that scaffolding to peer. There's always gonna be one or two that'll grab that clipboard with that note and start in,
Mhm.
and then the others join in too. Yeah, and sometimes you can orchestrate it, or the first time you play, you send someone in there that you know is a writer or a reader, and it's gonna go for those literacy materials. So it's that intentional, this is all very intentional. When someone comes in, oh, they're just playing, oh, this is very intentional.
Or if
Right?
you see
We know.
someone that's, spent a lot of time on something and they haven't noticed it, you kind of say, lead them to that.
Right.
Wow, I would really like you to share this with your friends. Could you really draw a picture of that?
Yeah.
So that we can share what you did today.
And that's why the teacher's involved in the play, right? I mean, we know when to step back, but we also know when to check in and go, oh, have you tried this? Have you seen this? Have you noticed this?
I
Look
just
what
have
so-and-so's
one little, anytime you put a paper in, she will kind of, I'm just gonna go over here, so I was just,
Well, and sometimes we know when to nudge.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right? We know when to nudge.
And
And
they'll be
makes
ready
that.
for you.
Right.
Take
Yeah,
a step
that's
back.
right.
Yep, and
And
they're all
that's
taking
key.
it in.
That's
They're all
key.
taking
Right.
it in. When it's
Right.
happening all around them, they're taking it
and you can modify it,
in.
right?
And we also put these up,
Mhm.
so, they have more motivation to do it because they know that if they spend time with Purposeful, they're going to be able to share. It's going to be around the room that
We
builds
take-
confidence.
And it's there for them to look at as an example,
Right.
look at,
That's
to
right.
kind of say, oh yeah, that's what yeah. Should do. I use that spiral notebooks in some of my stations
Yeah.
like that, and they just stay there, and then they can record
Yeah.
stuff. And then they can go back and see what other people have.
And I like that part, and that's why we put them up, because especially the building plans. Like,
Mhm.
do you remember when, didn't somebody build something like that? Let's go look and see where that is. You know, and they can find it, and we can take it down and try to build it again, even though we have to clean up. We have those, that snapshot. We take a lot of pictures too.
Yeah, and on the cover, I take a picture of that station so they know where that notebook goes. And that's kind of
Right.
makes it fun because it looks like a real
Yes.
book that
Yeah.
belongs
Yeah.
to not just
They
a.
love to look, they love to walk around with clipboards.
And with little ones who are kind of intimidated by that paper to say, "Oh, do you want a friend to help you do that?" You know, so then that peer modeling comes in.
I have a lot of friends that would say, like, you got it right here.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, we're gonna play again.
yeah, we're gonna play again.
With a
But that
little
was a good
more,
discussion anyway.
a little more knowledge. of
So
what's
now,
this
and a little
area.
bit more intentionality as you're doing that. So we'll do that for about 7
And
minutes.
if you see some of those ELs, the opportunity with a little guidance, or
Yeah.
peer guidance or adult guidance, if you see an opportunity for that EL to be taught, check it out.
Yeah. That's very. Yeah, we're just easier at-
Oh, yeah. It's not violent.
No. Think about drinking water.
I love it. Katie and I always just like, and we always order the same food.
Oh, I love it.
And so Katie wears them all the time.
Oh, take a picture.
I have a science table in my classroom.
She's getting into it now.
And I've never thought of this, so.
Did you notice there's a letter on the back? I'll tell you about that later.
Okay. I wondered it's an R and I couldn't think of it.
It has nothing to do with science. Wait.
R.
This is going to be on the NCCSC website. Do you notice all the?
It is amazing. I have we have gourds and pumpkins and I cut open.
Already they're blue scratchy.
No.
And with
I was wondering if I
the.
have a paper of mine too.
Yes.
So
It's
this is actually what I guess I have to do. That's what I
half is trace. And I've seen ones too that half is scratchy, like
Okay. And then someone asked me, oh, there's a commercial ball. So we have a word ball with colors. We have a ring with shape ornament.
Yeah.
And often if it's like, we're have them sitting. It's noticing the eye.
Yes, yes.
And drawing with pen. And what I'll say to them is, sometimes we draw like an artist, sometimes we draw like a scientist. And with this, we wanted them to draw
Yes.
like a scientist.
I like that it's a sentence, because right now mine has a picture box and it says draw what you are exploring, and then it has 4 boxes, and they draw 4 things they don't use, but I like that it's in a
This is just not all journal. Picture clues, things that we use in our classroom, exercises use this. And we use some of the same icons in their art, so you know, oh,
Which ones, these?
The ones that you just called them like that.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I mean, a lot of them you started now.
a lot of them, yeah, it was so scattered. And then when I choose Instagram,
A lot of these.
I send them one
Yes.
photo, who I know can get
Yeah. So these are ones that you picture.
Yeah, right. We appreciate that.
I said this one, wandering away.
Never are.
What's your picture?
I teach kindergarten.
I know.
That's right. My husband the other night, Matthew, she's 10, my daughter, her American Girl.
I'm not married.
What are you doing? Organizing. It's like, no, you're good. It's just good. You're playing dolls. Appreciate it.
Making dolls around
This is stuff we have.
I love it, because that is what happens right now when I'm not, or they use it.
I've got Sarah made this.
like that.
Okay. Sometimes she has an adult, to help them stretch out. And she in her classroom, so they're familiar with the ages, they know about the size.
Sarah has really described readers.
that there is,
And for specific things.
It is what it is. And that's the whole literacy. And then they succeeded there. It is, right? Yeah, right.
But they, so I know that this is all together and then they can go back and look here.
And it's like that. Well, and that's the thing, they can start out with the ones in order, and then as they move on a little bit, then they could move to something that's mixed up. Is this also a thing?
I mean,
No, that's for pictures.
yeah.
That's what I always go, click the free button first. Yeah,
That's why it's really nice, yeah.
So just the roll guy and then interact with the letter.
What's funny, he started out with just an apple, some gourd, some corn. On our science table, and then now it's some neuroscience. And then the kids are starting, like, when the kids want to do one. So they have to be in the hot table, and then it would be, of course, and also
Yeah.
Station, walk area. You can put it at a table, you can use it at a station. Then it goes.
These sticks and pine knives, so that also entices them to.
Is it? All right, let's, yeah.
Or I'm not gonna turn out the light. We don't want to.
That's right.
We forgot the chimes, we're gonna hear chimes.
Hey, you know,
I know, exactly, right? That's true.
All righty.
Sorry, we're experimenting. Sorry.
Sorry. All right. So, were there any that you had a difficult time finding? Just, we're gonna do just a quick general discussion about the emails, or even, yeah, what did you, any comments about looking for those, finding those, what did you notice? Were you able to find all of them? Or were there some that were a little bit of a stretch, or you need a little suggestion, or a little brainstorm together?
I just got stuck in like one section.
I didn't. Well, and you know, a good point about that is that kids need time, and that's what that proves. So if we were to call you over and you'd be going, and you were 5, you'd be going, but I'm not done. And that's really understandable.
Yeah.
When you go, wait, but I wasn't done either. No,
No closure.
yeah.
No completion.
Yeah. Anything you noticed about the problem solving, the things on the back that have to do with play, how play allows for problem solving, creativity. Everyone was able to find all those. Okay. Maybe we'll just go on. Okay. Okay. You got it. So this next time we're going to go, we have another. So now, so where's your role in all of this? And I think that we've been talking a little bit about this already, but we're going to focus this time on your role as the teacher. Because what we do want to be able to say is you are not just sitting there while they're playing. You're very involved in teaching while they're playing. And I think we've been modeling it pretty well of going in and saying, how can you, I mean, all the things that Becky was just saying that she did. That's your role, and that's what we do to make sure that the children are doing the learning that we want. So teachers during play observe, and then what they do is they identify concepts and skills that the children need, and then we find a way to entice them and pull them in even deeper. So that's our, by asking questions. And questions like, what color is this? Isn't going to give you as much information as how do you think you can change that? So it's good questioning that furthers their thinking. So what we're going to do is practice doing that. Asking questions, making suggestions, and finding follow-up. So let's say you do see a child who's really enthralled with the trucks and the trains. How can you develop another activity on top of that, that scaffolding, that'll entice that child in deeper? So that's what we're going to do. We're going to break into groups, 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll probably break into 3 groups. We're going to assign you to an area just for this activity. And one of you is going to be the teacher. And you're going to look and see ways that you can help the students go and work towards some of these things that are on that. And also see how you can assess what the children are doing. Is there a way that you can watch them at the activity that they're doing and assess a skill so that instead of, I know that sometimes people feel like they have to sit the child down and kind of quiz them. How can you learn what the child's able to do while they're playing because of what they're doing? That's what we're going to look
We're
for.
talking about informal assessment. So informal assessment. Are you going to get everything you need from that? Maybe not. Because we want to guide the play but not lead the play. So we don't want to change the play. We don't want to get in and go, oh, if you put your train track this way, what shape will you make? You know, that's called leading the play to get information that you need. So instead we're guiding the play to get the information that we can, knowing that we may not get every piece of information that we need, but thinking that we're going to get some information, and we're also going to be able to see how children are applying the information that they already have. So we see that they've really got it when they use it in their work, in their life.
So, got it?
Okay, so you'll need to decide who the teacher will be. We'll see who the natural. This is going to be, everyone's a teacher, right? So we can duke it out. So 1, 2, 3. Why don't you guys go to the house area, dramatic
One of
area?
you gets to be the teacher.
You decide who's going to be the teacher. 1, 2, 3.
I want to play. Not teacher.
We might have to- And then we'll have you 3 and you guys split up. One of you.
Or blocks. Hey, why don't you 3 go to blocks? I know, I would be. How about science area? You guys gonna be okay together? You should come out.
For my class.
Grab and go to art.
Where are we going?
Oh, very brave.
She was in your classroom, and I was.
And she
Yes.
So she came when you guys couldn't get to your parents. So I went.
I don't know where that is.
Ours is on the right hand, right?
Okay, yeah.
church there, but.
Why do you?
There you go.
Yeah, I was like that.
A-frames that's up on the wall. Behind Best Buy and it's big
Oh.
grassy.
Okay.
Gotcha. And our play area is on track. Yeah, there is on that new road.
That is just for adaptable. That is so like, hopefully everybody can try it. There's certain things that want everybody to get.
Oh, yeah.
As hard as it. Won't make it.
Okay.
Well, if I could show
So, by one,
There's some part of it that the stuff I understand.
I think a lot of them.
Because I want you.
or whatever. Yeah, right. But it's still okay. Yeah.
And I think as long as we show that. Yeah. What else did you?
No, I mean.
Honestly, I feel like that's.
Your friends, would you like to take?
But you still have to have this and follow you all.
So see if this is being other part. And I have to have this.
So. Play the game and just say what's on the. She goes, I haven't memorized, I know which words I'm supposed to say. And then
How are we doing 3 letters?
we're all teachers.
We all have this strategy. We get sidetracked with.
And that happens, like I said,
Yeah.
as long as there's learning going on, we're good.
I use it for right now.
Oh, you got one.
I use something from your class.
One minute. I got that. I think I got
Why did you?
Oh, yeah.
it. It's about 11
I would never
I like her first period.
Where's Tim?
We're in there.
your goal?
You all have anything you want to share?
Yes, it does.
Yeah, I think that's pretty exciting. By yourself?
I'll get it out.
You want to share?
Oh, you know what I have? Yeah, and it looks nice, man. He has really good fine motor skills. Have you noticed that? Yeah, it's very nice. Yeah. How many kids do you have in your class? What's your first name again? Claire. Claire.
This year I'm the late coach, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah. In Arlington. Okay. How did that go? It's really nice. I was taking Jan McCullough's job as she was transitioning into Instructional.
Oh, not for today.
I know we've got some people who want to share.
No, I did not. Oh. Or is this?
Did want to share.
And I'm going to have you guys come up with
All right, so who'd like to share something that you did? I know we have a group over here at the dramatic play.
Share.
Oh, yay.
And I chose them to share because their work was really productive to me. And they, every time I went into the house area, they were making up stories, they were drawing pictures of what they were doing, they were talking about their work, they were synergizing and working as a team really well together, deciding who was going to be what, and they were taking turns. And so they want to share, and they are able to share because they were so productive with their work today. All right.
Okay, so they were just playing in the house. We had a mommy and a doctor and a sick baby, and so as they were playing, I showed them a play script and asked who the characters were, and then that's when they kind of took over.
This is my baby, and this is my name. I'm really proud of my name right here. And I started to write my last name, but then I forgot the last letters. And this is baby and sick.
And I was the doctor, so I wrote that she took her baby to the doctor.
Good work. Boys and girls, were they productive? Shall we look at them how productive they were in their work today? They were very productive. They had a plan. They synergized and worked well as a team. They stuck with it for a long time. They drew a plan that they could share with us. Great work in the house area today. Okay, we have scientists that want to share.
And as they're walking up, what's interesting is how the teacher knew how to plant a little seed and then let them go, which I love, that recognition that they could do it.
And see the difference between the first kind of play that we did and how it's evolved with a little more intention and a little bit of teaching. Just that little bit of teaching.
Well, I saw this leaf that looked really cool, and then my teacher encouraged me to look at the book, and then I started to write my color words, and I found my color words in the book. Then I couldn't find one, so she told me to stretch it out.
Can you show us the page in the book?
Oh,
Yeah, because some friends might want to know where those color words were in that book,
Okay.
so that they can do that.
And I found a sight word that my teacher taught me. There's the word yellow and red.
I forgot my stuff.
That's fine.
We thought you had to go to the bathroom.
That's back and forth. That's like saying. Oh, I found this corn and it had lots of colors, and I started pulling it off, and she didn't stop me, which was great. And then when I took them off, she asked how I could maybe sort the kernels, and you can't see it here, but I sorted them by color. And as you can see, there's lots of different colors. There's yellow, and there's kind of a red, and there's white, and there's black. And I sorted them all by the different colors.
I noticed you were using a scientist tool over there.
Oh, I did. I used the.
What tool were you using? Let's show friends what tool you were using.
Well,
So
I
they'll
used a
know.
couple. Well, first, I used the magnifying glass, magnifying lens, makes everything bigger.
Mhm.
And then I found out that if you, I use this to look closer at the corn. But then I kind of figured out, I saw the hole in the bottom of this. There's already something in it, so I put the corn in it and it made kind of a rattle. And she didn't tell me not to, so, but when I was done, I took it out. I was trying to figure out what I could do with it.
So friends, what did you notice about his work that was productive today? Hold up your plan. What did you do about you? What did you notice about his work that was productive?
The sorting.
Sorting was productive.
Just his senses, you know, he was feeling the
His
corn,
senses.
taking it off of the cob. He liked the sound that if you put it in the star, what it made, the sound it made.
I also ate one just to see if it was crunchy. And it was. I just cut it apart.
And
She didn't stop me.
Because it's a real thing.
It is a real
Working is
thing.
a real
And it's
thing.
not gonna hurt me if I take a bite of
Not a
it.
big
And did
deal.
you like it?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay, thank you for being so good.
And that fine motor?
And sometimes you
Yes.
say,
Those are
what
tools.
did
Pulling
they
it off,
do?
picking it up and pulling it off with my motor.
Yeah.
Sometimes you say, what could they do next time that would make their play, that could be even more interesting, make their play even more interesting? What could they do? And somebody might say they could write words on their plan, or they could use another tool, or they could use something.
Patterns.
They could draw he could draw the pattern, he could do a rubbing. And the more you make these suggestions to them, the more the kids generate. Oh, next time they go in, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna make a rubbing, and I'm gonna label it, and I'm gonna draw it. And did you see that other book in there? So the sharing is such an important piece because it's motivating the others, it's extending their thinking. Oh, I never thought of doing that. The sharing is, coming back and sharing adds validity to their work, and it encourages others to expand their learning too. All right, well,
We kind of covered that,
Yeah.
yeah. Did anyone else have something they wanted to share? We don't want to.
yeah. Some of the ELs, you could pick up on phonetic spelling, so all of these things. You may not get the whole picture, you're not gonna know if they know all the letters with that, but you are able to see how they're applying what you're teaching in other areas, right? And some of the kids say, oh, I knew how to write that because we talked about that in writing workshop this morning. We did that at stations, and a lot of times someone asks me, well, you just put it there, I think it was a board game. We might introduce it at a station first in a different structure, and then put it in the center so they know what to do with it. And it does become more productive with the opportunity that they can use it the way and expand the way they use it. So, this is where we just kind of take a deep breath. And I could see it on some people's faces already this morning when they walked in the door. This is all great, but all those ELs, all those CFAs, I need to read this far. So you're a little more calm than the other groups have been. So we're appreciating that. We're appreciating that you're letting this unfold and that you're getting in this mindset of how wonderful all of this is and how valuable it is in seeing how children apply what they're learning and the learning that's happening as they go along. We are going to talk about all of these things a little more after we come back from the break, and you'll get a chance to ask specific questions of me, of Michi, anybody, Cece, anybody that can help you understand what we're talking about. And remember that you are going to come to the classroom too, so that you're going to see what the day looks like. It's going to look mostly like your day. That's what it's going to look like. But hopefully you'll get something. I want to say something about point number 3. We want our students to go beyond simply learning those ELs. That's not enough for me. I do want them to learn those things, but I want them to do so much more with those ELs. It's not just a matter of learning them and spitting them back to me so I can put a 3 on their report card. I want the students to be able to explain them, what is on set 9. go home. I want them to explain it to their parents. I want them to educate people around them. Oh, I know onset and rhyme. It's a really useful tool. It's going to help me with my reading and writing. We talk about why we're learning it. We do it like this. At, cat. It helps me when I'm writing because then I can break off that first sound and I hear that rhyming word. That's why we learn that little skill. That's what I wanted to know about their learning, to be able to apply it, and then we move on. We learn that skill, we use it, and then they have that skill. And I'm a little competitive. I want them to have 3s on all of those, for sure. But I really want them to also be able, when the principal comes into my classroom and says, what do you know about onset and rhyme to one of my kids? I want them to go, oh, well, it's a useful tool. It's a strategy that we use for writing. You learn the word strategy, and they'll say to each other, I have this strategy, or that's a good strategy. I have a strategy for you. It's a strategy we use for learning to read and learning to write. CVC words, cat, all those things we do, syllables, all things that are useful tools. And we say, these are useful tools for you. These are strategies you can use. We need to learn them in kindergarten. Oh, these will not help. Why do we learn them? Because we want to read. We so much want to read and be able to write independently. That's why we're doing this. And that's that teaching with intention, so they know what we're doing. And do we have to do it sitting at a table all the time? No. We can do it in many, many different ways. So we're going to take a break. Cece's going to give you some
Play one more
wonderment.
time.
Send you.
And you know what I was thinking is that one thing is that to children, they can read, you know, like,
Yeah.
they can read. And so what we have to do is just, give them the tools to even, to expand it even more. But to them, they're probably already readers.
Right.
They do look at, oh, but I want to read like that. Great, you can get
Well, the
it.
first
You're
thing we
doing
teach
it.
them is if you read the pictures,
Yeah, you're reading.
you're reading.
Yeah. So one of the things, just as a reminder, is that the way that children learn, there are different ways, and one of the ways is through instruction, but one of the ways is through play. So, but what I want you to do is tell me what you want to do as soon as I start doing this. I gotta get it screwed. How many of you want to get up here and touch this and figure out how I'm doing this and do it yourself? Like most people see this and go, oh. I know when I first saw it, it's like, let me. Like, don't our 5-year-olds all want to do that? They want to grab that thing right away and figure it out. You're not going to figure this out if I just get up here and say, well, this is how you do it. You're going to have to figure it out only if you get it in your hands again. And so our lesson is that what we need to do is provide an opportunity for children to have the things in their hands so that the things become real to them. So playing with the object is going to help them a lot. So playing with language, playing with words, playing with writing utensils, playing with tools, all of that is really important for teaching them all the skills that they need. So we are going to go on a break, and if anyone wants to try and get this in your hands so you can figure out how to play with it and how it works, that's what it's here for, okay? So a little break.
It's good today.
I'm better
Got it
today, aren't I? Yesterday I was.
A good night's sleep.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. So we're going to take a break.
Let's come back at 9:45.
Sure.
If you want to come back sooner, we'll just,
Yeah.
you'll get more
Start
time
earlier.
to play and enjoy things.
Yeah.
Also, there are a lot of materials over here on this table to look at, resources, things that kids have made, books from our projects that we have done in past years. Great things to explore.
Isn't it cool?
Yeah,
Is he? How's that going?
I forget his name. Okay.
Oh, really good. Does he sometimes forget your?
No.
I mean, it's just literally another Scaffolding.
You don't forget. You have it here?
Okay. So we're going to get into a little more detail now. And I'm hearing a lot of questions coming up about, the structure. And I know that's what's foremost in your mind right now. So first thing we're going to talk about is the littered environment. And that's kind of what you've seen. So it just means there are literacy materials everywhere in the environment. And this is not my classroom. I just was looking for plans for my little ring over there. But what's in your classroom is as important as how it is used. And we talked a little bit about just putting literacy materials in there. When we did that first play session, you weren't really drawn to them. You were drawn to the toys, which is naturally what a 5-year-old is going to do. But with a little intentional teaching and the sharing, you saw, oh, okay, I can use these literacy materials and they're helpful to me. So we're going to talk about how important it is that you share with your children what the literacy materials are for and model it to them as well so they know how to use them. So looking at the setup of your graph, if your work does not seem productive, and by work I mean play, or whatever word you want to use, but we're just careful to not say this is just play and this is work. It's all our work. If we have problems, we look at these things. Are your expectations appropriate for their play? Does your setup support engaged work? Are the materials appropriate and enticing? Are you planning for student interest? And somebody asked yesterday, what do you do when kids want to change their choice all the time? And sometimes we ran into that a little bit at the beginning of the year, but now kids are pretty engaged. And I don't know, Lena, if you want to, with a fresh set of eyes from a student teacher, what you saw the progression of how that play changed?
Yeah, well, I mean, at the beginning of the year, there's a lot of modeling, and there was a lot of switching. They want to go somewhere for 5 minutes, and then say, can I choose my choice? And now they usually have it in their mind at the beginning of the day where they want to be and what they want to do. And sometimes it's what they saw someone do yesterday, and they thought it was really neat, and so they want to do that today. And rarely, there's still only a couple who will want to change midway. They really are much more focused and productive. And I saw that as just because it was set up that way.
Yeah.
And it's what has been kind of modeled for them in the environment of the classroom.
And extending their play, giving them things to extend. So when you can see that they're starting to get a little bored with the materials, then you're over there saying, oh, well, did you see this? Have you tried this?
Where we changed like the house area.
Changing it up.
We changed it into the library, and now it's the post office, so that it's always a little fresh.
And talk about littered environment. I went in there the other day to clean up, and there was just paper. I said, oh, talk about a littered environment. There was paper everywhere, all with different developments of writing on it. And you hate to put that stuff in the recycling bin, but they do go through a lot of paper, especially in the house area where they use them. And planning for student interest. And remember, the supporting skills are just as important as those ELs. And I know the bottom line is we have to turn in those ELs, those CFAs. And these things aren't measured. They're not asking us to measure these things, but to kindergarten teachers, we know how important this piece is. So when we think about what literacy and things were you engaged in when you were playing, somebody said communicating. I mean, some people start thinking of literacy as books and materials and things for writing. But social dialogue, imaginative play, this is the literacy work of young children. Songs, chants, rhymes. Some of our kids don't get that in early childhood. They don't get it at home. They miss that step. How sad that they don't know nursery rhymes when they come to school. And some of us know that we start saying, little, little dumpling, my son, John, and they know. Nobody says, went to bed with his trousers on. And that's when I go, oh, okay, this is even more important now. Why is it important? Learning about how language works and language patterns.
And what's the play of it too, all that singing and song.
Yes.
Chanting is the play.
Chanting, so we sing through the day. We have a song for everything in our class. And games, and really those drawing skills are so important. I mean, we did, one year we did a whole, a 3-week unit on drawing. We do Map Man. That's from Handwriting Without Tears, where you build the person with the sticks. We have little art people, those artist things that you can move and shape into different positions for drawing people, drawing action people. So how do kids start telling their stories first? Through their drawings. So we want to help them be good drawers. And children need time. We talked about that. If they don't have enough time to play, they're not going to develop anything complex or meaningful. And just like when I turned off the light and you went, I'm not finished, right? We need time. And so we kind of walk around. Yes, we know we're on a clock. It's so hard to stop choice time. We're always like, I'm so sorry. I always start with an apology. I'm sorry that we have to clean up. I can see that you weren't finished yet. What can you say for tomorrow? Remember what you were doing. Make a plan for tomorrow. Because and when they go home, what do they say the best part of their day was? Choice time. Right? Playing time. Because that's what they want to do so desperately. And then there's that intentional planning and teaching piece. Strategically placing materials that support lazy, rich play in your areas. So you know that they're when they're playing in those areas, they're getting good experiences. Now, does that mean you just send them in and you don't do anything? And you can go do something else? No, that is not what that means. It means you plan your environment intentionally, and then you're there to follow up and assess and confer and change things up and put new things in to extend their play and their thinking.
And once you've got your room all set up, get down at their level and look at it.
Absolutely.
Make
Usually
sure
when
you-
someone comes into my room, they're like, where is she? Where is she? I hear her now. But, we're there. We're at their level. Mhm. And that's not just because I'm on the phone. I'm usually on the phone. And we talked about this. Productive play may need to be modeled, and expectations are clearly defined. What do we expect? And you saw a little bit of that in the sharing that we did. This is what we expect. And they got to share because they were being very productive. Their work was really important today. And look what came out of the work that they did today. So, a littered environment, we have literacy materials everywhere in the classroom. We have read the gingerbread man, and acted out the gingerbread man, and they put the things in the house area. And then they acted it out themselves. They had little signs that said the characters' names, and we were practicing. We were working on retelling. That's a first quarter step. Second quarter step. Second quarter step. We started retelling right from the beginning.
Something you teach all the time.
Because we do it constantly. We're doing it every skill, always. So they were retelling the story, and then we had a little triangle story map that we had introduced at a station. And they knew how to use the map. On this side you draw the characters, on this side you draw the setting, in the middle you draw the problem. And so it took a little modeling, and for kids that forget, I put a grown-up in there to encourage them to map out the story. And they're getting used to that, still early in the year, but you'll see some of that when you come to the room. Sometimes it's still taking some encouragement to do that. And then they had fun acting out. These little girls love seeing them in the blocked area. A lot of times girls don't choose blocks. And they made something, and they're drawing it together, all one plan, talking about who's going to draw what, helping each other spell words, and then sharing. An important piece. And important purpose. So we write for reasons. We don't just say write it because I want you to. Sometimes we do. But there are also opportunities like they sign it every day. They put an L next to their name if they need to go to the library. This little guy who's one of our striving readers. At recess time, they're in charge of the bathroom list and making sure that everybody gets to the bathroom. Because they have to go in and try, at least, at recess time. So he's marking them off. He has to find their name, and that's hard for him. And we have literacy all throughout the day, inside and outside. So when you come to visit, you'll see kids engaged in literacy activities at recess. We have a long recess time. It's about 40 minutes.
You just have one.
One long recess. Yeah. The way our schedule is, between specials, and it works out better for us to just have one long chunk of time. And again, so they can develop play. One long recess.
How long is your long
Our recess?
Yeah.
40 minutes. Some days it's 30. It depends on, I don't know, it's supposed to be 30, but it's just, on nice days, it's really hard to come inside. It's especially when they're doing these things.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I was just asking because you
Yeah.
kept saying long recess, so I just
It's
wondered
long. I
what
think
was
the
long in your
Principals
book.
would say that's long recess. Long
I
recess.
say it's.
Yeah. But for us, it's another choice time. It's choice time outside.
Yeah.
Choice time outside. And there are things that are really purposeful. This little girl, we have a box, we got a grant years ago. Because we noticed that the play, I don't know, Emily can talk, Emily was a kindergarten teacher there. Play was just, we were having troubles, behavior problems at recess.
There's not enough to
There's
do,
not
right?
enough to do.
Busy,
They were getting in trouble.
And the playground at Clear Creek is not especially big for the kindergartners. We have
It's not a great playground.
small playground just for kindergarten. So we did, Becky had the idea and we wrote a grant just from the foundation
Thousands
here.
of dollars.
They sent us to Wonder Lab. The kids figured out which things they wanted to recreate on their playground. And then we ended up with a playground that was pretty incredible and had a lot of intentional literacy.
They drew maps of where things should go. So we were doing mapping skills and labeling where things should go. We got out catalogs and they were checking things out in catalogs that we wanted to order.
How many kids are out there at the same time?
60.
Do all your classes go out together?
Yes. 62 kids.
So do ours.
Yeah, it's a little scary. And that's why we thought they need things to do.
And how
They
many
need to be
adults?
active. 2 or 3.
I mean, we have, it's a gated.
It's gated, yeah. I mean, they're fenced in, although some little ones have
They can.
But, and we've had kids get their heads stuck in there. That's
Oh
exciting.
my goodness.
But anyway, this little guy is writing in the blue sand. This is during an intervention time. We're going to talk about structures in a minute. This little girl has the music box out, and inside all of the boxes are books and journals. So they have reading with sometimes a little curve. Sometimes they read, some areas they read more than others. The bug book, they love the bug book. They get that out, they look at the bugs, and they draw pictures of the bugs in there.
And then they also find insects and things that are outside by digging through dirt, and then they encourage them to go.
Put worms in a little magnifying box and draw them.
They caught there was a frog outside one day.
This little girl's in the rock. We have a couple boxes. Emily's
And when I saw the picture, I said,
filled them
oh,
with
that's
rocks.
so
And I go to Michigan a lot. And every time I go to Michigan, I bring back rocks from Lake Michigan, and we put them in there. And the kids will bring fossils to put in. And then they dig. They have little brushes, magnifying glasses, and books about fossils, and they draw on the rock. And we have a plexiglass screen that we put in that they can write and draw on. So literacy outside. And we have books everywhere. So books in the science area by topic, or in it by topic. There's the book that you saw over there with the 3D shapes. Books in the art center, we have books about, you saw them, I brought some of the books about art in the art center. And sometimes they're not going to use them unless it's something that you bring to their attention. But then once you bring it to their attention, they say, oh, okay, I can use this book while I'm playing. And that does take some intentional teaching. The how to draw books, they really like those. Other one from Usborne. So explaining our environment to others. Why does my room look like this? And we talked about my administrator wants to come in and see, thinks the kindergarten room should look like this. When they come in, they think kids should be seated at a table with the teacher sitting in front of them. And yes, that is part of our day. We have small group instruction, we conference one-on-one, we have intervention time. So all of those things are part of our day. When the children are engaged in this kind of activity at center or choice time, we want to know that anyone who comes in our room knows that that's just as valuable as what we're doing when we're sitting with a small group of children at a table. We might be sitting with them on the floor. We might be sitting with them in the cubby area, or in the story pit, or in the hallway. But wherever we have children gathered, or whatever we're doing when we're engaged with children, is instruction for us. That's instructional time. And I think that's where sometimes it looks a little different in kindergarten. So small group might be look a little differently in kindergarten. We'll talk about that a little more. What I want you to see is you don't have to be able to read these things. Or in the classroom, and these are like from when I taught preschool, so they're really, really old. But like the block area has all those little words or all the skills that children are developing when they're engaged with blocks. Descriptions about the science area, what you might find there. And we're going to give you a handout that has lists of materials and purposeful activities specifically directed to literacy. So you're going to get that in the different areas of the classroom. So it explains the areas, what they're for, what you find there, what you see children doing there, what's the important work that they're doing. So adults, IU students come in, parents come in, administrators come in, and they say, what are you doing? And I'm busy, I say, go read the wall. Go read the walls in each area, and then come ask me if you still have questions. And I've been through 4 principals, and I know we've been really lucky, but there were only a couple that I had to really kind of train a little bit. The others, they get it, and they kind of go, okay.
But also, our data shows that the kids are learning the skills.
Our data
I think
shows.
that is the biggest thing is that, we continue to do the things that we do because the kids are making progress and they see that the kids are ready to go to 1st grade.
Yeah.
And they're reading at the end of the year and they're doing all the things that they should be doing at the end of the year. So,
At a very deep level, with understanding about what they're doing, because they continually are applying the skills through their natural way of demonstrating their knowledge through play. And be open to literacy, immersion, and teachable moments. If we're structuring everything that the kids do, there are no opportunities for kids to generate their own experiences and for children to show you how they're viewing the world and extend their own learning. So we have 2 stories. I have a story and Kara has a story. This is the WASP story. And I have a little boy who's a little shy. And his mom emailed me. I thought this was genius of his mother too. She said, is it okay if this little guy brings a wasp nest into school to share with his friends? He was really brave enough to want to bring it in and share it. And he's a little shy. And so I thought, yeah, that would be real. I'm thinking, oh, that would be really good for this child to bring this wasp nest in. So he brought it in and shared it, and the kids were really, really excited about it. And we put it in the science area, and Keegan was able to invite some kids over, pick some kids, I think it's important too, pick some friends who want to talk, I want to go see the wasp nest. And already he's starting to feel like, oh, that's so good for his confidence. So they came over and we were talking about the shapes that you see in the wasp nest. And then, well, isn't that a shape that we learn about in kindergarten? Oh yeah, what is that shape? And so one they often forget is hexagon. So we said, where do we have hexagons? So they went, we got hexagons out of the pattern blocks. Where else do we have hexagons? Oh, in the art area, we have stencils of hexagons. So we brought those over and they started drawing wasp's nest and labeling wasp nest. And we brought out a book about wasps. And so it became a very much a literacy activity that came from the wasp nest. And I'd say for probably 2 weeks. It was about 2 weeks of his choice time. He actually gave up. Toward the end, he was waning. But he gave up his choice time to invite friends over until everybody who wanted to turn had a turn to do activity of science and literacy activity in the science area at choice time. If we don't have choice time, that wouldn't have happened for that kid and for the other kiddos.
My story is, we had during, I think, a mini lesson, we read 3 Billy Goats Gruff, and I had the kids, I chose some kids to act it out. And we went to recess, we went to specials, we came back in, and the little guy sitting in my chair pulled 3 Billy Goats Gruff off the bookshelf, started sitting in my chair, and chose some friends to come down and start acting it out. And I said, oh, wait. So I had little puppets that would go along with it. And so I brought those over. He
narrated the whole story. We told them what they were to say for each character. We acted out the whole thing, and I dropped what I was going to do because that was more important than anything, because it was their initiation, and then they drew the story that they told.
Any questions about that? Teachable moments. We hear about that all the time.
And what I love is the story of the little guy, the wasp story, is he'll remember that forever.
Well, that's
You know,
become a part of our classroom culture now. Because we're always going to say, remember when he brought that wasp?
Yeah.
And we find ourselves going, remember when he brought that wasp nest in? And he goes, yeah, I remember. And we all remember. It becomes part of us.
Yeah.
And modeling that, I could bring something in cool too.
Right.
And we could make a little project out of that. Yeah. And always we're looking for ways to insert literacy. Always. I have a book for that. Let's draw a picture of that. Let's write about that. How can we share that with our friends? How can we share that with our family? How can we share that with our principal? So our principal sees the value. Take it to the office. Take the picture. Take the map that you drew. Go show Mrs. Prinkert what you did. And Mrs. Prinkert will go, wow, how did that happen? Well, here's how it happened, Mrs. Prinkert. At choice time, we were playing, and he brought the wasp nest, and look what happened. Because we had a book, we had paper, we had all those things we just pulled together for that one kiddo to make this happen. And we do quite a few projects, and I'm going to be giving you, we have handouts. There's like a master bullet putting these spreadsheets together, but we have handouts of like reading projects that we do, and you'll get it at the end. Social studies and science projects, and kind of when we choose to do them, I kind of hold back a little bit on giving out things like this because it's what works for us and what makes sense to us, but it's not necessarily, we're not saying this is what should happen, but it's just a suggestion in how we've structured it. Working in science and social studies standards throughout the course of the year in projects, mostly project-based learning. Our social studies and science units are project-based. We do small projects right now. I don't know, Lena can talk about it. That's kind of been her baby. We've done a social studies project about who works in our, go ahead.
We're doing who works in our school community first, because a lot of these, it's their first time in school and they don't know who the nurse is or who everybody is who works in our cafe, who helps clean our school. So we went and we talked about all of those people. We formed groups. We went and wrote a letter to them and asked if we could interview them. And we went and made up questions on little note cards, and they took it with them to interview. They scheduled an appointment, and we got to go interview them. They felt very important when it was their time to leave class. And they wrote little notes on their cards, like a little picture of whatever they said as their answer, so that we could come back and refer to that when we were doing later work. And this was all, with my help, obviously. And we took a picture with everyone. That's one group with our principal at the top. And now we're in the process of creating something from that to teach the rest of the class. So I've had someone, for the art teacher group, we created a collage. They got to come up and tell what they learned about our art teacher, Mrs. Franklin. We're doing a song, we're doing a movie, we're doing some plays.
A floor plan and a diagram of the office.
Of the office.
So we're introducing to these early projects different ways that you can represent your knowledge. So that's laying the groundwork for later projects. And you say, oh, I could make a diorama of that. Well, I could make different ways to represent, always with the literacy community, what they're doing. And now we're moving into who works in our broader community. Coming up next. I don't care, do you want to talk about your three little pigs?
Yeah, and last year, as just one of the small project, as one of my math stations, I had a story extension as we read the Three Little Pigs all week and different versions, and they had to build a structure, just given materials, popsicle sticks, paper, and pretty much everything I had in my classroom, just out, and they had to build a house that stood up to the big bad wolf, which I brought in experiment on Friday. We got everybody had their house, and to see if it blew over, and then we talked about, you know, what could you do differently next time? What would you change if it blew over? Or, you know, oh, they had a really great idea. I would have used that idea because it looked really sturdy. So, and then they had to also
This
build,
vocabulary, all this vocabulary.
draw their plan of what they built. And this year I did gingerbread.
They were really into
Track.
gingerbread man this year.
I read
Every
like
class.
all different versions of the gingerbread
Yeah.
man, and we did a track out of the Legos that are over there, where they have the gears and the simple machines, where it has the hooks and the gears and the pulleys and things like that. So this little girl made a track that dropped. I put cups out, paper clips, pretty much everything, and one little boy used the Legos to make a wolf copter and a hook and cup on the hook. So then you got to move it and drop down, and it dropped on top of the gingerbread man. So they were very creative. They had to draw what they were creating, and we all got to sit in a circle and share what they.
And I think that the great thing about project and using that project approach is that it integrates everything. I mean, we're the ones, and as you said this so beautifully yesterday, Cece, we're the ones who segment everything for kids, right? In their preschool years, their world is just their world. They're talking, they're singing, they're playing. So they come to school and we go, reading, writing, math, science. And yeah, it's important for them to know what those things are. We're the ones who separate everything for them and compartmentalize everything. But the projects are a great way to bring everything back together into that meaningful element again, so that they're incorporating science and math and social studies and working as a team. And you noticed when you were sharing your plans, I was talking about how they were working together. We use that word synergize, that comes from that 7 habits. And the literacy, always literacy elements to the projects. We do big inquiry projects in the wintertime, yeah.
This is wonderful, but when do you do it? Like, does this replace choice time when you're working on it? Is it your literacy block? Where do you fit it in?
Wherever we can. And so projects are sort of integrated into, and I'm going to come to a schedule here in a minute, but project work is sort of, it can be integrated thematically into a reading station. So for example, Benchmark has these great books about people in our community. What jobs do people do? You know, we're looking through going, where is that? I know that Benchmark has these books, right? So we pulled that out, and that's going to be at a literacy station next week. Who works in our community? That's going to be a guided reading group. That book, we're going to do a little activity with that. Then at choice time, most of what your interviews, we just kind of had to schedule those whenever people were available for that. The bulk of our project work happens during choice time. So Lena will say, today I need to meet with the people who work in the office team. And they know they're giving up a little bit of their choice time to do that, not all of it, but some of it, to do some work. So usually that kind of thing happens. So it does take a long time because we're talking about weeks, months.
And then the larger projects we do when we have like indoor recess, and we have another choice time, so we're having 2 choice times, you know, a day, so that they, you know, are working on those projects.
And they're so excited about it. And then, especially when they get to the making phase, the beginning phase is like, okay, research, but it's so important. And after the first couple projects, they know how it works. So they know we're getting to that part. We're getting to that part where we're going to make stuff.
They know what to expect, and so they
know
are
what to
excited because they have that
That's right.
familiarity.
And I want to also say that, you know, it's a slow process. Like I'm only in like my 4th or 5th year of teaching kindergarten, and so it's a slow process when you're just starting out to do these things. So don't take on 2 big projects for the year. You know, I made that mistake, and I was like, okay, no. Very
And I'm
stressful.
saying, you might want to not.
You know, can't keep up with her.
She had to
So,
figure it out herself.
you know, you kind of have to figure out what works best for you. I may not do the same projects or do my projects the same way. I'm trying to incorporate, you know, a variety of different like STEM activities into these projects as well. So just thinking about what works for you may not work for your teaching partner or your teaching team, that you just kind of do what works best for you and what's the interest of your children in your classroom, and it may take you some time to do. And you know, my community helper project is, you know, slow going because we've had to assess and had to do all these other things, but you just fit it in when you can and you work through it and you keep going because you know it's best for kids.
So valuable. It's just so valuable. Then if you do get interrupted, the end of the grading period, we got interrupted because we're going to talk about assessment in a minute, but there were some things we just had to sit down and assess. Right? It wasn't going to be worked into anything. We just had to do it. And we make little project books. And one thing I want to say about this, at the end of a project, I mean, we make a lot of things, but we take a lot of pictures. And we label the pictures and put their notes in here and everything that they do so that they can record it, so that they have that as a record for the rest of the year. And then what we do with it, we use some technology. This is pop-up light. The webs. There's a lot of webs in. Is that we send it, I usually put a little, and some of the other project books have a little description of what the project was and what ELs we worked on. Math ELs, science ELs, literacy ELs, everything that went into the project. Then we take it to the principal. And we either invite them. Last year with our STEM projects, I actually invited the principal and the assistant principal to come into the classroom. And we had all of our Lego STEM projects and invention station projects set up. And the kids were at stations and we just stepped back and the kids explained everything that they did. They had things labeled before the principal came in. And the principal was like, I mean, really, they had no idea. They're like, oh my gosh. We had no idea kindergartners were capable of doing this. The way they explained their project from beginning to end, you know, the way they demonstrated it for them, and then principals asked them questions and they were able to answer the questions because they were involved in the process from the beginning to the end, from the planning phase to the end phase. And then we asked them to sign it, we send it home, and the parents write comments and give us feedback on our project work. So that's part of educating people around you too, to understand the value of what you do. Kara said it does take time, but there's always that little thing in my mind. I have to prove myself. I have to prove myself. If I'm going to do it this way, I have to work harder than ever to prove what I'm doing. So we've had to work harder at it, and I know my data has to be good. Our data has to be good. Our kids have to make progress no matter where they were when they came in. So we know all about the components of literacy. We're not going into that today. Just a little reminder. So now we're going to talk about structure here for a little bit. I know that's what you've been waiting for, but we didn't want to put it at the beginning because we wanted you to hear all of this other stuff first. So you're approaching this with a little different mindset. So remember that the structure's a vehicle. It's not what we do. It's just something that we use to get there. There are many different structures, and we use these structures in our classroom. We do reading and writing workshop, which I've expressed to wonderful literacy people, if they ever get the chance. I know it's really expensive. We spent about 2-3 years, I don't remember, really delving into reading and writing workshop, having the people at Teachers College come to us. We had someone who, from Teachers College, from writing workshop, work in our building. She did book studies with us, and we were just totally immersed in it for at least a year. Very powerful if you ever get to have any of that training for reading and writing workshop. It was career changing for me. Daily 5 was great. The benchmark series, there are some great elements of the benchmark series. We do learning stations in our classroom. We do center and choice time. We do project work. We have thematic units. So many different structures to choose from. It's mind-boggling. And what usually happens is we have a training and we choose a structure and then we do that structure, right? And then we have another training and we do that structure. 2 or 3 years, and we have another training, right? And those of us who've been around for a while know that what happens is you take the best of this, and the best of that, and the best of this, and you start rolling it all kind of into one, right? And I think that's really what good teachers do. They take the best of everything. And the longer you teach, the more comfortable you get with that. But I think when you're starting out, it's good to study a structure like Benchmark because it's very comprehensive. It has every element that you need. It means all of those from that previous slide, all of those components of literacy, teaching and learning. And so it's good to get really, really familiar with the series. And the more information you get about other things, you start working those things in as well. Or you maybe change out an element of this for an element of something else. And our wonderful literacy people say that's okay. It's okay to mix and match all that. But the Benchmark series does have a good component, it's very comprehensive. We use parts of that as well at different times of the day. Structure just the vehicle. That's right, just the vehicle. So what's inside the car? What I want you to notice from these slides, well, I'm going to ask you what you notice from these slides. As you look at the pictures, I know they're small, but I couldn't part with any of them until the last couple of days. I was switching some out. So a workshop can look like this, using a workshop structure. Using a daily 5 structure can look like this. So what are some things that you're noticing?
Small groups.
Small group work. Yeah. Here's Mrs. Kopp. She's working with, where is she? Working with a group of kids. What else? Independent work. She's writing. Writing at writing workshop, but writing can also look like that at daily 5, right? Anything else?
They're all engaged.
They're all engaged. That's my big goal, always. What are you doing? You need help making a better plan? As soon as the wandering starts, like, what's your plan? What was your plan when you started? What's your plan now? What are you doing? Do you need help making a plan? Anything else? You see conferring? Up there. Do you see something that could look like word work? Read with a partner? Read to self? Or read with a furry friend? Sometimes on Fridays we read with a furry friend Friday. I love that. It's nice on Friday. Because it's really engaged. They bring an animal from home and they read with a furry friend. Oh, I'm going to get some conferences done today. There's some assessing done today. Sharing, do you see sharing? Sharing with a partner. Line chart, do you see some dramatic play, acting out? Okay, so stations can look like this. Centers can look like this. Or when I say centers, I mean choice time. What are you noticing? Same things. Same sorts of things. You guys are on it.
I'm noticing it all fits, so everything that was just mentioned is all of those components of a 90-minute reading. There's small group instruction, kids are engaged at their level. They're working on vocabulary and word work and phonemic awareness and independently practicing at their stations, working with their teacher. It's all of that, but it looks different. So we're not saying in kindergarten, don't do that, but we're just saying it looks different, but it's
And I'm saying you can do it all.
intentional. You can have it all.
When it flows from
It
one thing to
flows.
the next, and I think that that's a piece too, is that we were talking yesterday about how, we were saying writing workshop is not part of the block, but you know what, we use the same strategies, we're using the same small group conferring, we're using strategies from reading, we're using strategies from writing, we're talking about the same things that we're talking about in daily 5 time. we're talking about the same things that we talk about when we're conferencing with kids in reading. So it's all like, it meshes and goes together and it's all one piece.
And in my mind, separating out reading and writing doesn't make sense to me, because it's a connected process.
And you want the kids to see that.
You want the kids to see that. So in my mind, and then I know we had this discussion with our another literacy coach that we had in our principal, and they came to the conclusion that writing workshop absolutely should be part of the 90-minute reading block, even if the state doesn't feel that way.
And I think that a lot of the point of that is that if you are including your writing workshop in your literacy block, 90 minutes may not be enough, you know, for those, 90 minutes isn't enough to fit meeting with your small groups and your writing mini lessons and your reading mini lessons, but that, not that it doesn't go together, but that you need so much time to do it all.
Well, and I think that, you know what, when we're meeting with a group during project work at choice time, and hopefully you'll see this when you come, we'll try to make it intentional to you, that we pull a group of kids together, and we might pull intentionally when we do project work, when we have kids choose their teams and what they're going to work on. As we're picking, and we always say you might not get your first choice, because in my mind I'm going, I want this kiddo on a team, I need this kiddo on a team, I need this kiddo on a team, because I know they're going to be facilitating and modeling. So we do some more scaffolding here too, but we're working with the group. And when we pull that group together, and it might not be, you know, part of that 90 minutes of uninterrupted time, but boy, it sure does count, because we're pulling those kids together and we know what they need, and we need to get them phonetic spelling. And if so-and-so needs more work with phonetic spelling, I'm gonna go, would you be our writer today? You know, and the other kids, would you help him? You scaffold him. I want him to do the writing today. And so always in the back of your mind, this is literacy happening all day long, intentionally with intentional instruction of where we choose for kiddos. They feel like they're getting choice, absolutely. You know, but it is intentional, and that teaching happens all the time. There's some good benchmark stuff. We do a little unit on things from long ago, things passed down through generations, usually around the holiday time, and benchmark is great. Schools now and then. The mind maps are great because it's kind of open-ended, and you can interpret them. And they still have to go back in the text and find what they know. Really like the Reader's Theater books. So one of our stations is often like a Reader's Theater station where they're doing guided reading with me or with Mrs. Cobb. And then they're also performing a quick little performance. So when we come back to share, they're performing their Reader's Theater right away for that group. So this is what our day typically looks like. The thing that's different is, and I stuck this in here for a reason, when we start out the year, we do have 2 choice times. Choice time in the morning and a choice time in the afternoon. Problem is, we have lunch at 10:45 this year. You know how your schedule is always. We have this really bizarre schedule this year that we really aren't very fond of because there's too many transitions in our day. 10:45 we go to lunch, so that puts a little crimp in our style. So we now only have choice time in the afternoon. And but I wanted to put that in there because I wanted you to see that center time, when we had specials in the afternoon and a later lunch, was part of my 90-minute reading. So this choice time kind of activity. What I could get in there and play with them. I could go in and have a conference with them. I could pull a small group while they were doing that and do some strategy work while they were doing that, as to get that small group in, to get that one-on-one time in. That was another time I could do that, center time. And the kids were very engaged. If I wasn't working with the group, I knew they were engaged in great literacy activities. So that's why I put that in there. Right now, you won't see that when you come because our morning is so short. We have Clear Creek's a little different. We have this competency-based model where when kids are ready to go to next learning level, they do, no matter what time of the year it is. So as a team, if we decide and the parents decide they've mastered all the kindergarten ELs, they move on to first grade ELs in our class, in our school. So we have it set up where for part of the ELA block, the kids go to different classes. So you'll see that when you come. So Kara has the striving leaders this year. And our newer kindergarten teacher has the kiddos who are kind of right on grade level that we know they're going to get it all by the end of the year. And then I have the kiddos, and I'm not going to say enrichment because everybody needs enrichment. The kiddos who are picking things up a little more quickly, and by now they've mastered most of their letters and sounds and rhyming, and they're ready to move forward. Last year we moved on. We got through about more than half of the first grade ELs with that group of kindergartners last year. It was a little exceptional.
We had a lot of readers coming.
A lot of leaders already coming in. But the structure looked the same. I mean, it looked the same. We were still doing all of those things. A lot of those pictures were from last year too. Still looks the same no matter what.
It's essentially a modified PLC, or like TLC. We call it TLC
Intervention time.
So it's intervention time. It's just like
Longer.
an extended time.
So all the preventionists go to Kara. And then she has small groups and intervention and really small groups for an hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so that's how
Every day?
Every day except Wednesday because we have lunch at 10:45.
There was no point in switching.
So that's her class, she has those kids in her class all the time.
All morning.
Just all morning, just for the ELA block, and then like the upper grades do math too, I think, but
Yeah, we don't have the support. We don't have the support. We don't have any support.
So we
people.
differentiate within our class.
So we just do ELA, like that way. We'll get what we take,
Yeah.
take what we
So
get.
like, do your kids come to your room and like put their things away and then go to her?
We have like a
Yeah.
morning meeting.
Yeah.
You'll see it, you'll see it when you come. And it's takes some time, we have some run-throughs, because these are kinders, and they get their book bags and they go to the other room. But now they know, say, if you're in Mrs. D's room, go, if you're in Mrs. Frederickson's room, go, and they go. And then we start, and we do all those things. Any other questions? We usually have some questions right in here.
What's your afternoon meeting?
Afternoon meetings, some math, a lot of math. We found this year that our kiddos are having trouble with counting, 1 to 1, and Lena's been working on that too. And so literacy is more my strength than math, and so this is a good team here because she's really doing a lot with the math. But we've been doing a lot of counting strategies.
So is that just your focused lesson time
Yes,
during
like
that
a
time?
mini lesson.
And you're just a mini
So the
lesson?
afternoon meeting's like it's not really
Just
a
your mini
meeting,
lesson?
like circle time or something.
Whole group meeting, circle time. Yeah, meeting, we call it meeting. We have a story pit, you'll see, we can't have circle time, unfortunately. I like a circle. But we have this arena thing, where it's like, someone's up here and they're there. I prefer a circle. Sometimes we try to get into an oval. But I have 21 kids and that's hard. When I want to pull them in really close, let's try it, but it's hard.
Can I ask, do you guys have rest time?
Yes. I do.
I thought we were the only ones that still did.
What does it look like?
What does it look like? That's what I thought we were going to get past this slide.
I know.
But nobody
I
noticed.
I think it's important.
What? We do have a rest time. Oh, we're not very intense. Our day is long. We added an hour to our day. And we still do have a rest time. We have the social studies care skills time, which is a whole group time. You'll see when we come in from recess, it's a really great time to hash everything out. What went well, what didn't go well, we have a lot of plays. Let's act that out. Did you have a problem? Let's act it out. And that's such great language. And then we go to rest. And rest is like for us about 1:45 to 2:50. And boy, they're just crashed by that time. And so we have yoga mats and we go to our little spots. Everyone has their own spot and we put on music and turn off the lights. And I usually have about 5 kids that fall asleep every single day. Those young ones, those ones that were 4 when they came to us. We don't call it nap, we call it rest. And then some of them we have to wake up. And at the beginning of the year, it's really hard, and you feel horrible. You're like, get up, bath. Got things to do, things to do, things to do.
And, you know, there are some that don't sleep, but it's a good time for them to have their thoughts and their dialogue, and for them to rest their eyes, their mind, and their body. I tell them that, you know, our morning is very long, our afternoon is very long. We still have a lot of learning left to do, so it's time for us to rest our minds so that we can do that.
In schools and classrooms, might do that differently just based on what their day looks like. So I know that, you know, we call the magical minutes based on, you know, when the specials were, if they were earlier, and then if there was a long period that they just needed a 10 to 15 minute time, little break there.
Yeah, just a time to shut down and not talk, not have the demands of having to talk. People asking them questions. I mean, these guys, we ask so much of them.
Do you ever have any that want to read or color or anything?
We just set it up from the beginning that it's just rest time.
Yeah.
And they bring stuffed animals. And sometimes they play with their animals on the mats. It's not that long of a time.
I have some that bring their own blankets and their own pillows.
They bring a little pillow and a little blanket, and they get on their mat, and it's so good. And then you realize how little they are. They curl up and they suck their thumb, and you go, oh, you forget. You know, we're always like, come on, what's that number? And you forget how little they are and what their needs are.
I had a kid a few years ago that had a lot of trouble with rest time. He had an IEP, but I gave him a little box of things to do during that time because he had ADHD.
Yeah.
Sit still.
And we have a kid that
Without
has a
waiting
box. And he gets it out, you'll see him go get it out, get his little box out, put it play for a little bit, and then he puts it up when he gets tired.
Put him in a place that it's not near other children.
What do you do during that time?
Now.
All these things are going on. She is
Sometimes
now.
I'll say, I'm so tired, and they say, well, you can go to sleep, Sister. I'm like, no, I get in trouble for that. What I notice is if I'm moving around the room, that's very distracting.
They follow you.
They're like,
Then it gives them permission to move.
Right, and so typically I'll sit and work on my newsletter to parents a little bit at that time. But I like to, just something that I need to do, planning, that I can sit, I'll bring it to a table where I can see everybody, and I just sit there quietly. Because if I'm moving, they're like, oh, that's disruptive. I don't say a word.
And some places might, you know, it's okay to take your book bin, but I know that has to be explicitly taught
Right.
from the beginning. And
What do you
does
do?
it look like you
That's
have
right.
a book with you during this time? You know,
Yeah.
it's silent, it's, you know, it's
You just
your
have to
own
set that
time.
precedent for whatever you want it to look like later. You have to set that precedent at the beginning.
It's interesting that through this yesterday, how much this can be a question in terms of rest time. And I understand that, but, you know, from the lens of maybe a principal or someone from the outside, if I know that this is what's happening throughout that whole day, and literacy and other, those meaningful, authentic, engaging times that they are happening throughout, I'm not questioning rest time. That's not my go-to point, right? I am amazed at everything else that's going on in that day, and her data is showing growth for anyone who's at any point of any student, and it's differentiated. So, I mean, I just think that's important, that there are such meaningful things happening, and not just this classroom, many classrooms throughout our district, that the rest time or play, which is really learning at this age, then isn't the focus. Does that make sense?
Or not a concern. It's not going to
Yeah,
concern you if you know that what they're getting out of everything. And if they need a little rest, a little downtime to be productive.
You're not gonna go back tomorrow and make it look exactly like this. You're gonna make it look like what works for you and your building and what your classroom is like. And if you're unsure or this is not what it looks like, but you want to try it, and invite your principal and say, hey, I've been working on these literacy stations, these math stations, we're trying this new play thing, see how it has literacy in it. Those are kinds of the ways forward with that if you are unsure about this kind of learning in your building. So focusing on the learning that kids are doing on the deep levels and their data to show that it works are ways to get started.
And that was thrilling as principal when a teacher would say, okay, I've been working on this so long with this child, and he's got it, or she's got it, you know. So come during center time, and can you come in and see it, or come and see this new project we've been working on. We were, delving into IB, so our kids are understanding it. They're asking the questions, and it's really inquiry or something like that. So those were high points to be able to be invited in.
I can't help but think, we're doing this for 3.5 hours, and we scheduled ourselves a 15-minute break.
Yeah.
Because our brains needed to.
We schedule
So
breaks
if
for
you think of it,
ourselves.
yeah,
We sure
for
do.
adults.
Yeah.
So it's just what is developmentally appropriate for a kindergartner is to have a break maybe that includes lying down and shutting down. And you were saying before how we sometimes plant an idea of something for them
Sometimes we have to think about.
Which is kind of a cute idea.
Think about what we did this morning. Think about what you're going to tell your parents when you get home. We have this, we're going to get on Teams tomorrow for our project. Think about what interests you. What team? Pick 2 or 3 choices. Think while you're resting today. Think about 2 or 3 choices you might make when we get up and decide and make a list of who wants to work on this project. So sometimes they're, think about it. I'll let you know.
And they do flop around like that.
And they do flop around. Okay. So the talk is really, really important. And I do have this quote outside my wall. I like to put things out in the hallway too, so people who walk by know kind of when they have some food for thought before they even walk into the classroom. So there are pictures of kids doing things outside of the classroom, and some quotes on the wall that sort of set the stage for what they're going to see when they come in, and our administrators know. One thing is that talking is like the most important thing we do here, because that's how we learn from each other. And we learn the most when we can talk about things. We used to tell kids to, be quiet and get your work done. But the talk is such an important part of the work. And it's about what we say, and how we say it, and how we listen, and how we respond, how we value the talk. Whose voices do you hear? When I walk into a classroom, I want to hear kids talking. I don't want to just hear the teacher talking over everybody. Emily, come over here. Emily, I need you. Come here. And sometimes we do that. I do it. And then I always go, oh, I hated the way that sounded. I should come over and I should come to you. Or I should come and get you. We get caught up in saving time. So the I talk versus the we talk. Yeah, teachers like to talk. That's probably why we're teachers. And we like to be up here. But the we talk is so important. We're having a discussion about this. We're discussing this idea. What do you think? And I don't know, Rita can talk to that a little bit maybe, but it's just a different way of engaging children in, having those interactive meetings and finding ways to bring a book to life and get the bodies moving.
Yesterday Becky kept saying we, and somebody said, you keep saying we. Do you have lots of other teachers in your room with you? And she said, well, I do have a student teacher, but it's we, the class. Like,
when I say we, I mean we. It's we. And then the teacher's voice level. Staying calm. I know I have a voice that can maybe put you to sleep. I don't intend to do that, but I do try to keep the children calm and use my voice a lot in a calm way to entice, to bring them in. And just because I don't like the sound of my own voice that much, but the voice level I think is important. It says something about your classroom. when you're not the loudest voice in the room. Okay, thank you. Questioning, again, really, really important. We talked a little bit about guiding versus leading the play, or what kind of questions you ask. And Karen and I did this cool tree. We went to a workshop about Socratic circles and asking questions, the art of asking questions, and the questions came from that. I threw a few more questions in there that we like to ask. And we like to ask those deeper questions. Those are harder for kids, obviously, but that's that big language component, right? The speech teacher will come in and say they can't answer how and why questions. That's that deeper thinking. So we want to get down into those roots, and we want to ask deeper questions. Well, why did you think that? Why do you say that? How do you know? Tell me more about that. What would happen if we did this? How can we find out? So those are questions that lead you to, that you use with more open-ended play, with open-ended experiences, to get them thinking a little deeper. And we have words everywhere. Vocabulary is so important. We know we had Dr. Rosinski in here with vocabulary and fluency, and we know how that was a great thing. That literacy cohort a few years ago, did anybody get to do that literacy cohort? That was so great. I feel so lucky to have been able to do that. Kira got to do that too. We learned so much. I mean, every time we had that great professional development, we just add another layer. And now more than ever, we're paying a lot of attention to vocabulary. And not just words that kids use, but academic vocabulary. We both had vocabulary charts in our classrooms where when we learn a new word, we just put ours up this year. We learn a new word like we,
Or
sorting, classifying, all those vocabulary words, we put them up there and they're there and we can go, oh, investigate. Remember what does investigate mean? Oh, we use that in the science area. That's a great science word. We're just building that vocabulary. And for the kids who come in with very little vocabulary, or they just have that functional vocabulary, come here, sit down, what do you want, be quiet. You know, sometimes that's a lot of what they get at home. It's really important that we build a working vocabulary for them and model to them what language sounds like, because that's going to help them with their literacy skills as they move forward. Building that vocabulary base. So you will see us sing and chant and cheer and recite and rhyme, harvest new words, we learn new words, we do a lot of acting out every single day in our room. And there's just some fun vocabulary stuff. My favorite one, well, I have two favorites. Well, they're all my favorite. Where the wild things are, we harvest words for new words. So they like mischief, although we had fun saying you can't be, you can't. We don't want you to act that one out all day. We don't want to see any mischief. So we drew a picture, someone drew a picture of Max chasing his dog with the fork.
You have a tally mark there.
A tally mark. So this is hard to do. We try to do it, sometimes it's hard. If they use the word, then we put a tally mark there. That's something we learned from Dr. It's because we want them using these words. So we don't choose words. Sometimes we choose words just for fun. But the words I really try to choose are to do that with the tally marks are words that they might use. And never can.
Like one of mine was slide. And
Slide.
every time, like when we read the gingerbread, we had slide. Slide box. And so we knew like how many slides.
We really want to
Draw
use
their
it.
attention to it. They use it.
Draw our attention to. Another Rosinski thing is when we read Trouble with Trolls, there were so many great juicy sound words. So we put them in order of softest to loudest. Just drawing their attention to those words. And we change up rhymes a lot. We have vocabulary journals later on in the year. You won't see that when you come yet, but we use those later. So we have, our kiddos have book bags. And you'll see this when you come. And things that are in the book bag include, they decorate them with book characters. Of course, they all become TV characters, you know. What's in a book? SpongeBob, he's in a book. I have a book. SpongeBob.
So they have their,
Ew. Yeah.
chant chart. So this is for like daily 5 time or read to self time. Chant chart, their ABC chart. We do the Tucker signs that go with this.
We go A is for apple. Very powerful. B is for boy. Really got them to learn their letters and sounds very quickly.
And it also provides scaffolding when they're writing. So if they're saying, cat, all you have to do is go, and they're like, oh.
Anybody go to the Tucker sign? Yeah, great. Good tool. Very good tool.
Oh, we use it in our.
Yeah. There's a workshop next week. I think it's full.
And then all the poems that we do, all the rhyme charts that we do, we put these in weekly so that they have a resource to keep practicing and build their fluency.
Sometimes we do word work, so we'll put that at a word workstation, the rhyme, and then with some guidance, they will find the rhyming words,
Find letters.
Depending on what skill they need, we'll say, well, why don't we have them find, if we're working on digraphs, and we'll say, put on a rhyme with digraphs, find all the digraphs. And then after they do word work with it, with a little guidance, it goes into their rhyme folder, so when they're doing independent reading, they've got something they can read, because it's memorized already.
We do a lot of bookmarks. So this is a retelling bookmark, and they all have a retelling book in their book bag called Star Books, and those are ones that they can practice retelling because those are books that we've read already. So, Corduroy,
Classic
tales, those kinds of things.
Have enough meat for retelling. as
Yeah.
opposed to something-
We have bookmarks we're working on that. We have bookmarks later when they spend more time making connections. And we're going to give you also a writing and reading, or units of study that we do in writing and reading workshop. And books that go with it, and skills that the ELs are on there. No.
Our writing
Just in
genres, and
general
then there's
stuff.
daily 5 like strategies that we introduced during cafe strategies that we introduced during that time. They kind of coincide with how we teach things by quarter. So onset and rhyme and CDC would be in those second quarter months. So
They have a retelling checklist. This was kind of fun. Lena did this when I was not there that day. How did that go?
It went well, because basically we're the character.
So they
Talking
work
with
with
It's
a
for
partner.
accountability, so that they're.
Accountability, and some people say, well, they don't read. I send them to daily to read to self or read with a partner, but they don't read. I think having these kinds of things, the bookmark, put your bookmark in front of you as you retell. Did you tell them who? Did you tell them where?
and then you can sit down with them at daily
Yes,
5 time
have
and say, let's practice retelling. Tell me the story.
And then you can assess retelling. They're doing it, and they're doing it with each other as a partner for scaffolding. And you can hear if they're saying the character and the setting and the problem and the solution. And that's one of our ELs. And this is a really easy one to assess without saying, would you come here and would you retell this to me? This is a great one to use that in a formal assessment with. They're doing it in a structure that they're familiar with a partner.
We've been doing it at a reading station and putting the classic tales out with puppets and having them do that. So,
And picture clues help them know what to do.
the other thing that we put in is usually a notebook or a reading journal, and we give them specific tasks to do early on.
To start with, yeah.
So that they know that when they're going and using this, they have to have a book out. They have to be either, I think you're doing retail, I haven't introduced mine yet, but she's doing retelling. So when they go to read to self or read with someone, they have to have a book out and they're retelling the story and drawing.
Gives them just something to, it's that accountability so that it's focusing their attention a little more. Because until they really start reading, you know that sparks at some point in the year when they're like, I'm really reading this. I'm really reading this. And then they start staying longer with their books. And then it's like, oh, they're waiting for this for, 6 months. Now they can really get a lot out of read to self and read with a partner, or whatever your structure is, when they're practicing that independent reading. But this kind of just focuses their attention a little bit. It makes them accountable, makes them a little more productive. And like, how are you doing on that? What are you putting in your journal?
And also coming back and sharing the they were, like, we introduced, like, I think I did like CDC words. You know, find the CDC words, or find the words that you can break apart in odds and rhyme. Find the at words in any of the texts that you have in your book bag. And then coming back and sharing sight words. Those are really great.
It does say, I got 15 CDC words in one book. Just drawing their attention to it.
Do you only pick books for your book bag, like we have boxes that you have that bag? Or do they get books to put in there
At
too?
the beginning of the year, they need a lot of help. We call it Shop for Books. And it's really daily 6, because Shop for Books is a choice at daily 5 time. If they need to, we'll say, who needs to shop for books? And we'll have a few at a time come over and shop for books. Now, I've been bringing over a whole, like, when we switched for ELA, her book is complicated. She had still her books in her kids' book bags. So I met with all of her kids who were in my ELA, and we went through the whole process together. And in here I have, we make things. I always want kids to be independent at some point, right? So we teach them how to read these. We make these using things that they know, they're familiar with. So this is from Daily 5. I pick good books. We have this on a clipboard. I look at the book. Think of the purpose. Am I interested in it? Can I comprehend it by reading the pictures? Can I understand it? Can I figure out some of the words at the beginning? Maybe not. And then I made this one. Look at the size of the print. It's hard for you to see from here. How many words are there? Too few for you, or maybe this is just right for you. Is this too many for you, or maybe that's too light? Is this just right for you? So they have this little reminder. So when I shop for books, I'm remembering to use these things. Are there picture clues? Are there pictures that you can read? Is there a pattern? This cat is big, this cat is small, this cat is black. So in their book bags, we want them to have some just right books that have these things that they can be independent with and start those beginning skills. Then we also have wonderful classic books in their book bags. They always have to have books. Read the picture books that they can retell and practice that storytelling voice. Once upon a time, there was a black cat.
So we do it together. And like later in the year, they were more independent. With my scribing readers group, I'm likely to do it longer. I'm probably going to, and that's when I do a lot of my conferencing. Is shop for books, because you're really getting a sense of what book, what level you're at.
And how often do they shop when they feel like moving on?
Kids want to shop all the time, and we'll say, honey,
Think you
spend
ought to
some
stick it out
time
of
with your
right.
books.
I think we do it
again
differently.
and again.
I think we do it differently.
We probably do.
I think she does it as a choice, and I do it every couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Or if
Well, and I noticed, and I do keep a list of who's choosing what, so that I know, if they're always choosing listen to reading. And for listen to reading, I still tape. I know that's a dinosaur thing to do, but it's my voice on the tapes reading Mrs. Wishy-Washy and the Jiggery. And so they listen, it's Mrs. Dixon on there reading. But, there's that trigger of, oh, okay, this is what we do when we read this. And we're going to point to the words. And a lot of kids need help. At this point, early in the year or two, they're just not quite there yet. They're still just listening and looking at the pictures, and that's just where they are. But if they are always using the same thing, I'll nudge a little and say, you haven't done, word work is a have to do at Daily 5. So we have word work at stations, and then we have word work also at Daily 5.
They pick which activity for word work they do. If you have several out, they pick which one they want.
They can do, some things are have to do's, like I'll have maybe the rhyme, because I want them to do the rhyme because it's going in their rhyme folder or something with the rhyme as a hack. And then they have word work in the reading station, so if they get finished, they could do something else at the station, or they could go get their book bag and go choose to read a self or shop for books or something else.
and I do a lot of like activities that they've already
Things
done.
they already have done.
Or things that they need to practice, so like I would have a have to do, and then after they're done with the have to do, maybe matching alphabet puzzles, or, you know, doing a
Something more
sound.
open-ended.
More open-ended, or,
How long are your stations?
15, I think, I feel
15,
they're
20
probably
minutes,
15,
Do
20
you go
minutes
one
now.
place or many places? You go to one place?
Maybe one a day,
One,
one
so,
station a day, and then they rotate. You'll see all that when you come.
So during the 15 minutes, I will stay here, and then the next day I will go to another.
Yeah, they rotate. Every day they do different stations.
And I put myself at one station.
Yes, and that's a small group, and then that small group, right?
And it's like a
So-
retail, and that's where I.
And she has preventionists too, so there's small groups happening everywhere. I have a student teacher, so we've got 2 small group things happening at a time. And that's how that's how our small group fits in. But we also do small group, as I said, like when I pull a group together for a project, that's small group work, because I'm doing it with intention.
And then they do daily 5 rounds in addition to that
Yeah.
station.
Yeah. We do 1 maybe 5 rounds, usually sometimes 2. Now this lunch thing, this early lunch.
And then
You mean brunch? Brunch.
Yeah. Well, we go at 10:20, 10:30.
Oh,
I just, do they
You
eat
want
lunch?
Some of it.
And then do you, Wednesdays, they eat a snack?
We have a snack later.
Yeah, because I make snack at like
Wednesdays are the hardest, because they come in, they get breakfast, and then.
I'm not really,
but. You get,
Oh,
they don't
Wednesday.
eat lunch.
Yeah.
I don't think you need breakfast.
We thought 11:15
No.
was early.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, but now we.
So this is their writing folder. They keep track, we do different genres of writing throughout the year in writing workshop. We can do a workshop on it for that, because we like writing workshop a lot. We like that we do the Mac and Share thing. And again, that's just a structure. It's not the beginning, it's the beginning. Okay, so.
Say one thing, and I really, really want to save time for you to look at this to make people wanting to keep pictures. Teacher-generated stuff, and I'm not going to say versus. See the little hand hearts up there? Means they can go hand in hand. We now have something called Teachers Pay Teachers. Wonderful resource. I would caution you to use it with intention and carefully. I would suggest that when you go on there, you're looking for something specific rather than just surfing to find something cute. So this is my pet peeve word, cute. So when you come into my classroom, please don't say, oh, that's so cute. Oh, that's cute. Because this is really serious work that we're doing. So I take that as kind of an insult because it's so much more, it's not just cute, it's so much more than that. We make things, you can see all the things that we've made, the bookmarks, the things to guide them through and help them to be independent, directions, writing directions with little picture icons, things like that, the Venn diagrams with, comparing the gingerbread man. Let me find some of this stuff to show you. Because we not had time. We have pictures. Oh, we do have pictures. Okay. So things like this, open-ended but purposeful. Open to interpretation, but yes, we have an idea of what they want to do. Drawing and writing skills. Bookmarks for retelling. We pull pictures from the books that we're reading in the classroom, so that they look at that and they go, oh yeah, it's copy too dark. But the setting, this is these are the settings from these books we read. This is this. This we made, the ant thing. This we made out of, we wanted a visual clue to help with CBC words. And our literacy coach at the time found something that was an ant for CBC words. And so we took off on that and said, well, what would onset and rhyme be? How about a turtle? So that when we're practicing CBC words at a station and they slide, they do that sliding thing that gets that into that motor memory of how the first sound and the second sound and the third sound, or it's going into the and. We're actually gonna do this at a station next week for those of you who come to see that. Because we just thought, well, we used to just have the Alcona boxes. And we would do this, but then we would give them an Alcona box. I'm like, well, let's just make ants for everybody to practice that. So they're practicing those CDC words with the ant, and the turtle is on set line. And they're in sheet protectors so that they can write, erase, base paper.
The bug is 2 phony words.
2 phony
It's
words.
in all those sight words there.
That was maybe a stretch, but we wanted to stay with that.
And you know, it makes me think that if you are intentional, from the slide you had before, if you're intentional, then you're following the children and what
That's right.
you're doing. And if you're going on and just surfing, you're being attracted by that. Oh, how cute! Oh, how clever! And it's
So
not
go back
following the
to
child.
this one. And
So yeah.
when you're just surfing, and not always, we found some great, Alina found, I don't know if you found it on Teachers Pay Teachers, another site for the post office, you know, pre-made little Teachers Pay Teachers, little pre-made envelopes, you know, some of the things that were out there. So they do have some great stuff. And sometimes I don't pay money, I'm cheap. I'm not gonna pay for it if I can make it myself, because in the olden days, we didn't have that. We made everything ourselves. If you needed something to fit a certain need for a kiddo or for your class, you made it. So that's where I come from. But Teachers Pay Teachers is my candy store. Ooh. I don't have to make anything anymore. But then you lose that connection, that personal connection to what you, the culture of your room, the language of your room, the clip art that your kids know, because you use it on different things. So that's what we wanted. And it may be more geared to teaching isolated skills. It may tend to be more practice oriented. Do they need some of that? Yeah, some, but not all. It may connect to class activity, or you may find something cool and say, oh, I'm going to do a unit on this because this is such a cute thing on Teachers Pay Teachers, right? Instead of looking for what you need for what you're doing.
Especially with struggling, a lot of things anymore on Teachers Pay Teachers are that are, you know, pre-made, have twirly letters and
Yeah,
crazy
cutesy
fonts.
stuff.
And like, if
Yeah.
you're thinking about the kids in your class that are struggling to read and struggling to learn, those things aren't helpful. It's more helpful for them to see big, plain text that they can recognize.
So be aware, that's such a good point. Say that this afternoon too, because that's a good point
Especially
to
on the
mention.
Especially on the I mean, if you want them to read it, more like
They're always, when A looks like an A, he just doesn't like my font choice.
Well, you know, we
So
do have a
good.
thing, I have a thing that has, I haven't gotten it out yet this year, but it's drawers of letters that have different fonts for every letter. And even on our CFA, to get a 4, right, you have to read the fancy G and the fancy A. And so,
Well,
within
why-
reason.
Yeah, with
But
the
why don't they
keep
look
the
what they
struggling
have-
kid
is
in
it the
mind.
fancy name or not?
Right,
The regular A.
A regular.
because they want to trick you.
So anyway, just be
Be aware.
be intentional and be careful. And don't be afraid to make your own stuff, because when you make your own stuff, it's tailored to exactly what you're doing with your class and what your kid is doing. Okay, enough said about that. So finally we get back to the CFAs. And I feel like I put this at the end because hopefully you're getting the idea by now. We're not going to have a whole big long discussion about it. Would we rather that there were less ELs? Would we rather that there were less CFAs?
And there
Yes.
is a feedback form for that.
Fill it out. And we know there are a lot, but every time more comes, I just say, okay, all right, but I'm not going to change what I do. Has it gotten harder? Yeah, a little harder. Do I feel more anxious about it? Yeah, I do. Because there's times when I would like to set up activities with the intention of observing what I want to know, but it's not going to give me everything that I want to know. So sometimes I do still have to just say, can I borrow you for a minute to do this, right? And then make sure it just takes a minute, and then say, I just really remember when, and I just want to know, and I want to be able to tell your parents when they ask the next time that, yeah, you really do get this. And they're like, okay. And then they go back. So yes, sometimes it's just easier, and some of the CFAs really are going to give us more information than we're going to get from observing. However, it shouldn't be the only assessment that you're doing. So often we'll just put a clipboard with a piece of paper with their names on it at a math station where we're doing a whole group math or a small group math and just taking notes. Lena is now having a group of, when we do math with a group, so we rotate again during that 20-minute period, and when they come to me or they come to Lena, she's got a piece of paper that has the kids' names and the ELs that they need work on. Still from first quarter, of course, because we're still working on those. And she's taken notes on that, so we just kind of started that a couple weeks ago. It's taken us up to this point to kind of figure out what do they really know. It takes this long, doesn't it?
Yeah.
To really, with kindergartners, get in there because they are playing and we are watching them play and we are trying to use informal assessment.
And you have to teach them how to do all of
How
those things
this
so that
whole
it
thing works.
is meaningful.
That so that it is meaningful. That's right, and it takes kindergarten teachers, and that's what people don't understand, that we know. It takes so much time for them to say, learn, what do we do here? And kids come from places where they've never been anywhere before. And they've never held a marker in their hands before. So we have to, like, this is a marker, this is a glue stick. This is how we cut. This is how we use a glue stick. We don't pull it all the way to the top and break the top. All these little lessons that kindergarten teachers have to do. And then they put all these ELs in first quarter. And we go, so anyway, those are discussions that we're always going to have and that we need to continue to have. However, you just have to say, okay, I can have it all. I can do all of this. And hopefully when you come to the classroom, you'll get just a little glimpse. You're just going to get a little, anything can happen in one day, so I can't guarantee you're going to see all these things. That's why we're doing this, because you're not going to see everything. But you'll see some of these things happening. And you'll see that we're taking some notes, and that we're doing conferences, and we're doing some assessment, and we're doing all these things, and we're having small group, and we're doing all these things that we're supposed to do. But the kids are also really engaged in enjoying the work and playing. So this is the end. Ooh, we're really efficient. We're going to have a little bit of time here. So Emily asked if we could talk about involving the family, and helping parents understand. And we do that in a number of ways. We have weekly newsletters. We have a class website we're going to show you in a minute. Our school has Littering, every school does. Emailing, face-to-face conferencing, which is still so important. I just finished Wednesday, my last conference. Before school, after school, whenever parents can get there, it's so important to sit down with families face-to-face. And remember that not all families have access to technology. So every year I have a couple who can't get on the website, so for them, the newsletter needs to be good in detail so they know what's happening in the classroom. Or bring them in at a conference and show them, get online and show them pictures of what their kiddos are doing. There's something else I was going to say. We have family learning nights, family literacy night where we set out games just like this. And the parents come in, we give them pizza because that's what gets them there. But they play first and then we feed them. Because we learned 1 year, they eat and they leave. And then they come into the classroom with the kids and they play. And then we walk around and say, oh, this is what they're doing when they do this. This is what they're doing when they do this. So that the parents understand.
Some of our activities, we have recording sheets that go with a lot of our activities, so when parents come, see what activities they're doing with the recording sheets, so they're not just thinking that they're sitting down and doing worksheets all day.
Yeah, we do use a lot of paper in our room. It's a lot of paper. We have blank books, we do these diagrams. We ask them to record things that they're doing. And a lot of the math games have recording sheets, but the recording sheets are what goes home, and then the parents don't understand. So we always tell them, That's a record, they're recording what they're doing. We want them to do that because it transfers their knowledge to something else. And every time kids do that, that's another level of layer of learning. Doing it, recording it, explaining it, all those things. So we'll go to the website. And websites are such a great thing. She knows my password. It's the same for everything. My garage code. She is my daughter-in-law. Did I say that? Married to my son. She lived in our basement for a year.
The year I started teaching kindergarten.
We worked together all day.
That was such a good
and then
year.
we lived together about it. It was great for planning. We survived it.
So we post, videos, I'll show this, and we showed this up yesterday, so the parent, yeah. So they're showing how
This-
it
They
turned
knew,
out.
this was for, they knew they were making this for their parents. See the slinky? So their parents are seeing all these things. So they stretch it out and then they pull the slinky. This is last year's kids. So every time we introduce a new word family, this is something that we do in our room, part of our culture.
And then also add learning links to pretty much YouTube, that she's got tons more than I do. But
So much stuff on YouTube. You can find a YouTube
videos.
video for everything. Where's Flossie?
I'll find it.
And while you're doing that, a couple things I want to show you. Magnadoodles are so great too for onset and rhyme. Oh no, I don't have one. Our literature coach showed us this, and it's such great motor. So erase the C. Really fun.
This is why the R, there's an R on the back of the science lab.
Yeah, you were asking about the R.
here's
and
the
then
R.
lab code. This is like our favorite.
are on the back of the scientist lecture, so you
He's bossing up.
So obviously this is made by a class.
And with just a little bounce, bossy, y'all make such a fuss. And he
So they have the little
changes the sound
short.
somehow.
Our kids just love this.
And
Crazy
he's
stuff.
just gotta know that it changes the sounds 'cause it's pain in the brain. No,
A little guy needs it back.
I says, oh, and I they say, because of, oh, he's bossing up. And we're just a little loud. Bossy, makes such a fuss. And he changes the sound somehow.
Somehow I'm gonna feel that kid is
Probably like that. Okay, we can do it. Now you can go back, to the picture? I don't know where that picture is. So my kids decided after we watched this, they wanted to do this. They wanted to make their own video. So we took our lab codes, from the science area and just put letters on the backs of our lab codes. And they, I don't remember.
It was back here.
It's okay.
Oh, we killed it.
We acted it out. Oh my gosh. One thing I was going to say about assessment too, did we get that? I just didn't talk about that picture. I let one go by. That intentional assessment that you can set up, and I'm going to do this with Lena because this is what we did. We had about 4 kiddos that we were uncertain about rhyming. Most of the kids got it pretty well, and some of the kids maybe just weren't quite there yet. But for the kids that we were just a little uncertain about, whether they were at that 2.5, whether we were ready to bump them to a 3. So we played a little game, and I like to use my koosh ball because it's active, it's active. And I made a list of the kids that we were unsure about, and she stood up and took notes. And we just played a game, and I know a word that rhymes with cat. And then she has to send it back. Hat. I know a word that, I know, do these words rhyme? Lena, car, cat. No. Although we had some yeses. And then she's like, no, not yet. But that was just a really quick, and if we were unsure, we kept coming back to those kids. And she would go. and we just played that way. And that was just all that I needed, a little more because I was a little unsure. That some of the other kids might have needed a little more from, but for those kids I just wanted to do a quick check, and we did it in an active, playful way and got the information that we needed. So being a little crafty about how you do things. So you don't have to just say, I've already done it. Because I always feel like I'm saying, I'm so sorry, I've already done it. I'm interrupted. Very important work. And we have some handouts to give you.
So we're gonna, this was like the I talk, and the next time is the we talk. Because when we meet after you go to Becky's classroom, we have some things that we'd like you to come and share with us. So these are some things to, it explains some 4 or 5 or 6 points of what we've talked about and done in here, and then also things that you're going to do differently or maybe that you try and implement. And it really is a chance for you to share what you've already got in here or how you do a takeaway.
I would love for you to bring, we want to set up your stuff next time.
Just can't get.
So if you do something, you have something interesting to share, please bring your stuff. I'll be really sad if you don't bring some stuff. So bring some stuff, and if you want to send me pictures, I am Dixon and Mrs. Cissy. If you want to send me pictures of something that you're excited about, that you've tried or done, I will link a little slideshow that we can share.
And on that table right out there are handouts that we have for you. Yeah, there are
Emily
more
has something
things.
for you.
There's some things on there.
And Emily said.
Okay, Emily.
No, so in trying to support you with this early literacy grant, we were very fortunate that it was quite a bit of money to support literacy, especially with our youngest kiddos. So you're here today, you're going to be observing in Becky's room sometime in the next few weeks. We have a follow-up, but then we also want to support you in your work in your classrooms. And so there is stipend money for 1 or 2 days outside of the school day for you to work in your classroom and implementing anything that you've learned, and then you can be paid for that time as well. It's 6 hours equals $100, so you can work up to 12 hours outside of your classroom and be paid for that. Your principals will be getting payroll claim forms at the principals meeting on Tuesday, where Michi will be telling them about stipends, but then also giving them some look-fors and some things that they can hopefully see if you are implementing this and teaching in this way. So she'll be delivering that message to them just to help with the message and the understanding. So just so you know, that is one other way
Outside
that
of the teaching day.
it is outside of the school
Yeah.
day. Some people are working with teams. I know you guys have a very long way to go.
And a half an hour lunch.
Some people are working with teams, some people on their own. Your literacy coach can also receive a stipend if you choose to work with her as well. So
Sorry.
that's okay. Just putting that out there. So if you are feeling like, oh, this is so much, think about.
After you come to the classroom, it's so hard to see. And that might spark some things. And I'm just really grateful to be able to share because we used to get together as kindergarten teachers, and since we've done, there's so many new teachers since we used to do that. I think when the day got longer, we stopped doing that. And so it's just really, we need time to share with each other because everybody's doing such great things in their classrooms, and we need to learn. We need to learn from each other. Share those ideas.
Are you going to offer your services?
I will offer my services if you want, help with setting up room arrangement or placing materials or anything like that I can help you with. art and, yeah.
Do you have a good recommendation of how to go about collecting all this kind of stuff?
Well, we had a big discussion about that,
Like, did your
yesterday.
principal support you? Did they give you?
I mean, I inherited a classroom with a lot, with big blocks and little blocks and I inherited a lot of stuff. I've been in my room for 21 years. So I've accumulated a lot of stuff. But garage sales, yard sales, recycling center.
Becky writes grants like
Grants.
nobody's business.
Yeah, we just wrote a grant to go see Elephant Piggy and do a big unit on production, and we're gonna make sets, and we're gonna bring in a music teacher and the art teacher to write music for our productions and like appearance, and so if you write a really nice, colorful, snazzy grant, they really like that.
And then
It's a catchy title.
I have gotten lots and lots of materials from the staff and parents at school just saying, hey, if you're done with toys, if you're done with blocks, if you're done with books from your own children, we could use them in kindergarten. People take a ton of stuff to Goodwill. That could be helpful too. So.
Also, Goodwill, that's a good
I was
choice.
gonna say, Goodwill has in the back section, there's like a whole shelf that's like, you fill up a bag for like $2 and it has like all the Legos and bits and pieces of things. You have to kind of go through it, but you could get a whole set of Legos if you have the time, to just put them in a bag real fast for $2. Like,
isn't it the first Saturday of the month is half
everything's
price?
half price, yeah.
And our teacher resource center has so many just bins or little containers and different types of papers
And sometimes your buildings will have things tucked away.
And other
Talk to
teachers
your
too.
janitors.
And I would say like books, I've gone to a couple of like antique stores that have a lot of classic books and things like that for like $2.
And I used to have something at the National Guard Armory in the spring. And not just, just all kinds of things. And I used to get great beans and.
The answer is all over the place. It is just a different way of looking for things.
I just want to say thank you for being here and the work that you're doing with our
Thank you.